like a motion to approve the agenda. Are we ready?
Move the agenda.
Thank you. Wasco, is there a second?
Second.
Sullivan, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we move to open time for the public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Do you have any members of the public who'd like to speak?
All from the public.
Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, standing committees report out. That would be the finance committee, is that correct?
Right.
Peter and Pam.
We met yesterday for an hour and 15 minutes. We reviewed items on the agenda. We also reviewed, in the back, there's also an item, I believe, is it B?
The legal one is B.
So there wasn't a whole lot to discuss, though. We did talk about the prepayment penalty, which was $80,000 for the purchase of the district headquarters.
No, that was the.
That was part of the.
It was the payoff of the
Okay.
$10 million bond.
Yeah, it was the bond that cost a lot of money. The loan on the house was the cost of money.
It was a prepayment.
Right, but it was for the bond, remember?
Right, for the
funny
bond, but had to do with prepayment. Okay. Where else?
Here are your notes, because there are a couple things
Yeah,
that
I'm looking
came
at
up.
that.
One was we were talking about fitness for employees and encouraging
Oh, right.
that.
$300 a year, and the employees, saw two utilizing that. This was a 6 months report, by the way, right?
Right.
So we reviewed that, and as well, it's all there for the board members to see, not just the financial community. Looking at
The other item was the overtime policy, and whether we had a written
Right.
policy, and how did it differentiate from standby, and we we're going to get some more information on that.
Right. We also talked about ongoing legal expenses, which we do every month. And I, again, requested a policy be written on, and I think it's in the minutes, either from this December or November, to create a policy, please, right away, to when council exceeds their contracted $15,000 a month, that it comes to the board for approval rather than us just getting the bill that it's being paid. So that can come from the financial committee. Something about, looking at the capital expenditures. If you look on page 5 and 6, we talked about the variances being quite a bit minus, and that's because projects are still coming forward, and we haven't really got to the place of full implementation, is what you said, Greg, right?
Correct.
Yeah, just to be clear, you're on item 8C of the consent calendar.
I'm reporting out
on
on the financial committee.
I know, but when you say page 5 of 6, I just want to be sure everyone on board knows where we are.
Oh, it's in the 6 months.
Yeah, it's 8C.
Sorry, it's after the line items.
We were worried as the finance committee that our underspending on capital projects would serve as a red flag to the
Right.
water board, but it's not that we were underspending, it was just that we couldn't
work
get
fast enough.
all the projects started.
Yeah.
And we are well within the requirements of the water board with the projects that we have started.
Anything else, Peter?
Well, we're tracking reserves, so that this is the only
right,
place that it
reserves.
shows up.
Right.
So it's on page 5 as well.
And we also talked about the audit and inventory. That there's that there has not been a tracking system of the inventory. And so that's going to be started up and be finalized by June. And we ask that a report each month come to us to let us know how is that playing out. So at this point, we don't have a way to inventory what we
Well,
have.
can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Can't you get a layer in your CMMS for asset management, inventory?
Eventually, that would be ideal to have a link. So if you're using materials for like a maintenance activity, there would be some kind of link that would say,
Minimum stock
we
level
took this manhole out of inventory, we used it for this job.
Right.
But right now, we just
Doesn't
don't
let you
have
do
a
that.
system for that. Right. But we're going to, we're using the finance committee basically to provide monthly progress reports on each of the key items from that management letter for the audit, and what we're doing addressing that. The inventory controls issue was definitely basically one of the top, 2 or 3 from that report. So we're gonna keep providing updates on it. The short answer to your question is someday.
Okay, Sunday.
Someday.
And also,
Someday soon.
and then your overtime policy, you do have one built into your MOU with your,
Yeah, I believe it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you probably don't have one for your management staff or something?
The management staff are exempt, and we get overtime.
I don't hear well, so I'm sorry.
The management staff are exempt employees, and we get overtime.
Right.
But there was something about the policies for overtime versus standby time, and how they integrated, and when you were called in for one, the other, I mean, it was,
Those are negotiated
standard-
items in the
Yeah.
MOU.
yeah, so I guess that's all we need to know that the,
If I may, there's policy on 2 levels here. One is what we are required to, under what circumstances we are required to pay overtime and what is negotiated, and the other is how overtime actually gets authorized so that people are working it. And I believe the Finance Committee was more concerned about the authorization
Okay, so
process.
it's really authorizing overtime outside of the terms of our existing understanding of overtime. That sounds right.
Yeah, we're working with AFSCME on clarifying some procedural issues around the payment of standby overtime, so I think we'll see a little more control in that area, if that's what you're looking for.
well, the finance committee is in favor of that.
I already know what the employees get, that we negotiated, it's still embedded in the MOU.
Right, we're not gonna, we can't, well, we can change that amount, but we have to do it in a bargaining
It'll
environment.
be at the right time.
But procedurally, we can and are working with them to get a little more accountability into the system, a little more approval, authorization, understanding of who's getting what and why.
Okay. Thank you.
One more item is, and I can't find it now, maybe you know where it is, Greg, the Vivian Housing
Oh, yeah.
summary.
Yeah.
Do you know where
So,
that is? Is
yeah,
that
it's
the
in-
back?
It's in the announcement of our meeting.
Is it the B?
No, it's in our meeting announcement.
It's not actually in your full package.
Okay,
That was
so-
the summary we provided.
The summary says 278,000, but was not in there that there's an additional 40,000 that will create a total of $318,000 that we're paying out for IAMP services.
Well, basically, the report that you guys have shows that the original IMP contract is completed and all the work has been done.
There's a
The
couple
cost
things
of it-
there.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there was like $2,000 or $3,000 of pay.
Yeah.
So what we've done, we have a completely new contract for implementation support on different activities, and that's what was considered, I think, a month or so back. So, yeah, there.
It was not in there, so it's a total of 318,000. You all knew that, right? Okay. I mean, does everybody read their financial things? 'Cause sometimes I get a little concerned. I'm a human, so I'm not perfect. I'm looking at this, and I don't hear too much from the other board members. I don't get any questions too often, so I'm just a little concerned that we're all 5 members here to review the finances, not just me here. But Peter and I, we do a
Well,
pretty
we're
good
supposed to
job.
ask you that, I didn't know that.
Peter and I do a pretty good job. We're
I'm doing it
both
for you.
detail freaks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the progress report and the deficiencies from our,
Oh,
the
good.
inventory was just one of them. The two positive things are the internal control deficiencies that were described, making sure that you had balances, and we've done that in terms of payroll and wage changes and bank reconciliation and all that sort of stuff. And the other one was the cash receipts thing, having the box in the front, and that's all. We've now got two different people and locks and stored away and et cetera, et cetera. So that two of the fixable items have been fixed, and reasonably so. Now, does this come to everybody on the board? We probably should.
You know, I guess it should, and the finance committee item, I think the short answer is no, it didn't.
We probably should.
We can, going forward.
I mean, it's legitimate stuff that we end up talking about. No, we have a standing committee report, so it could just be that item.
And typically, I think, maybe this is part of Peter's, I think more often than not, the items that you've been
They're in the
discussing-
finance.
Right,
They are.
they've been in the regular
Right.
package
Yeah.
only. This time, just by happenstance, we ended up with a couple of very focused items that were only in your guys' in the finance committee. But if it's useful, it's not a problem to go ahead and
Well,
distribute that.
we can either do it as part of the committee, or you can just put it in the finance.
Sure.
I think it would go well with the finance package.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you know that, what was it, yesterday or the day before, I sent over something to Greg, thanking everybody for actually doing what the board requested on your tables and your variances and your actual dollar amounts and things. And so I thought it was a well put together finance packet, and I actually enjoyed it.
I agree. Looking back, I won't say when,
How far?
but the quarterlies are very organized, it's very simple to understand, there's a nice narrative beforehand, and it's really pulling it together. And so each time I review it, it's much easier to understand and to track. So thank you for changing that format. That's
Yeah, good job, staff.
a good thing. A good thing. I just have one quick question then. I haven't seen minutes in a long time on the finance committee for months. So I don't know, did that just drop off? I probably it's just action minutes, but we should have some minutes.
I really don't recall.
Because we're taping the meetings and it is,
They've been getting done, and I know that they've been getting sent into the office. We can check with,
how to see in the
yeah,
minutes.
the
Are
assistant
we being
to
typed
see.
out, or is there some voice recognition from nuance or something?
No, it's getting typed out.
We'd like to, actually just, because I think that's been a little bit of at least I'll say I haven't been crystal clear. We typically, I think, have taken higher level kind of summary minutes on the finance
At least we can.
compared to the full board meeting.
Yeah, we don't.
And would you like those to be included, like along, basically like we include the regular board meeting minutes? Would that be okay. Because I haven't been clear exactly how we have been distributing those.
This is brand new.
Well, it's a
We have to
standing
decide.
committee, and you should have your minutes
Okay.
somewhere.
So we'll provide the summary finance committee meetings minutes just as part of what you're getting each month when you get the regular.
That would be great.
board meeting. Okay.
And then
very
there are
good.
number better.
It's not much improvement.
So that was the standing committee reports out.
Question. And so they looked at some issues dealing with the management letter from the auditor. The board needs to understand that the board is a client of the auditor, not the finance committee. And I'm not sure when this is going to get to the board, but it needs to come to the board at some point in time. And that's one of the issues that I have. We're talking about these, the committees meeting. They're getting information the full board's not getting. So, it's,
Okay. Well, and so the progress reports on the follow-up actions to the audit, well, Adam, clearly, and Frank, we can, let me back up. So first of all, so we'll start providing the full board the same, the exact same package that goes to the finance committee. So if there's some items like this month, we had this monthly progress report on the follow-up to the audit, but it did only go in the finance committee package. So at a minimum, we'll distribute the finance committee items to the full board just as a standard practice going forward. I think that's good. You all have the same baseline information. And then for sure, I mean, some of these will eventually arise to most likely some decisions or action items that go to board level, like whatever it might be, like the inventory controls or something. So if we get to an action step, that doesn't go forward until it comes, to the full board. But at a minimum, we'll have you guys get the exact same package, so you have all the information.
Yeah, because they may have questions for us to bring out and
Okay.
kind of help everybody. Okay.
Are there other standing committees that need to report out?
Nope.
Oh, wait.
I know.
Oh, no, I went to the North Bay watershed, but that's at the end.
That's at the end.
That's not.
All right, then I'd like to move on to the consent calendar, item number 8. Does anybody have anything they want to pull and discuss in the consent calendar?
I wanted to discuss, let's see, 8C, committee report.
I have a question for the minutes.
Oh, and then I guess 8B, the financial report. Pam touched on some of them.
8B?
I had some specific questions. So B and C.
Okay, and then Pam, you had something on the minutes, 8A?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we just move through them and then move the consent calendar?
Okay, so, on page 35 of the minutes, item 19. Did we have no board members request future agenda items? I thought there was something.
There were some requests for future agenda items that were made during the discussion of the standing committee report out. So if you look earlier in the minutes of the standing committee report out, there were at least 2 requests made from board members at that time.
So, okay. Do you know what page that's on by chance?
I believe it's on page 2.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
Okay, Frank?
Okay, so on 8B, just a couple of questions. So I was on page 9 of 12, on the accounting. And then page 9 of 12, it would be item 12, temporary help. We budgeted $24,000, to date we've spent, I'm not quite sure.
63,000.
63,000 today. Yeah, so the question was, what caused the temporary help?
Yeah, that is, the bulk of that is the RGS, the Regional Government Services. That's where that money is showing up. And then a much smaller portion of it is basically a combination of the pardon me, Laura, the minutes, and also we have some, specifically, we have Laura providing some additional, basically, data input and work for us at the office. So that's, between those two, the bulk of that, though, the reason it's so far above what we budgeted was when we adopted the budget, we hadn't gone in the direction of the RGS contract. So most of that overrun versus budget is the monies that we're using to cover the RGS contract.
That was what, $100,000 contract?
That was the first contract, correct, if that's the amount.
And this is where it's going to show up, under temporary help? I'm not sure that's where it should be reported.
Yeah, am I getting the reporting correct?
Yeah. Just to clarify, when we had originally submitted the budget, it had a proposed additional position for the district of an HR manager. And that was run through the way every other employee is, with all of the salary and benefits expensed out. So when we brought RGS on, we're putting them under temporary help so that those extra funds that weren't budgeted for fall into the same category as the funds that were budgeted for a regular full-time employee. So that you can see the offset.
I actually asked the same question.
And in the future, it will stay there, or will it be moved to another item on the?
For the remainder of this fiscal year, it will remain
When we adopt
here.
a new budget.
When we go to do a new budget cycle, it would probably be flow through as an additional item in outside services.
Yeah.
So the 56,897 at the top, under wage and expense, could be seen as offsetting, or I mean, in some way?
That and many of the benefits that are also under budget.
So it's not professional services, it's outside services.
Outside professional services, typically that's where we put things like our auditors, legal, we have some IT consultants.
If we keep putting them under temporary help for the rest of the year, that's gonna be $100,000 almost out of whack. It's gonna look like we don't know what we're doing here. And I would imagine that consultant should have its own line down here someplace. We have a consultant for legal, we have a consultant for auditing, that ought to show up in its own line numbers.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's gonna, the variance is gonna look, it's gonna be notable. There's no, I mean, that's the point of having to track the variances. But, I mean, we could add a footnote or something for this to help.
Well, how about a budget amendment? Eliminate that position that was in the budget and add a consultant, however you characterize it,
Yeah.
and give it its own line number and dollar amount.
Yeah.
And catch up with that way.
Yeah, so the going the budget amendment route is, we haven't really, I guess we haven't had a discussion of what we want to do on that. We for the moment, we're tracking the variances, so we know where we're high and where we're low, and what the causes of the variances are. The district has not, in the past, and this is somewhat different than I know for a lot of general services type budgets, where we haven't done like quarterly or mid-cycle amendments to actually change the budget numbers. We've just been, we track the differences and we can account for them. So that's maybe a practice that the district may want to consider in the future. In other words, when we do these mid-year, we talked a little bit about this just briefly in the past, we know we're going to be off budget, like for example, this is a good one, but also like our capital budgets. We may start with a budget of X million dollars for a project that gets delayed or substantially modified by the time we're at the fiscal midpoint. And so I guess a question for the district going forward in the future is, do we want to make it a practice once every 6 months at the mid-cycle to actually do amendments, or just note the differences and be tracking them? So it's kind of it's a reporting difference, a practices difference. So Frank, we haven't done amendments in the past, we've just been tracking what, here's what we thought we were going to be doing, and here's what we're doing off. This in the future, I think as Wendy's already said, is probably more consistently reported under professional services, the same as we would our typical outside professional services like the audit and legal services and so forth. But again, as you said, we knew that the monies that had been allocated for the HR position would have been under this general category of salaries and benefits. So since that money wasn't going to be being spent, we're trying to show that where the RGS money is being spent now is just under that same category, so you can kind of see how that's, basically you can track it as the intended pool of money. In the future, we can decide if we want to report that under outside services or whatever makes the most sense. But RGS came on, a couple months into the fiscal year, and so this is But we do, to be clear, we know exactly where the money's going, in terms of why this is higher.
So that's offset by the first line, item one, line number one.
Right.
Wages, salary, expenses, that's under budget 56,879.
Right.
Yeah, we're actually under budget all the way down to 50,000. What's the, are you done there?
So the next question, and Pam touched on it, under 16, the bank fees, and that was up 17,888%, so $89,000. So that was the prepayment penalty for the loan that we had and the building payoff? Did both of them together or just one of them?
No, it's just the building now.
I believe it's just the Kerner mortgage early.
No,
payoff.
it's the bond.
Is it
It's the bond,
Okay.
it's
8
off,
million.
there were prepayment penalties on both the payoff of the Kerner building and on the early payoff of the $10 million bond.
Okay.
That, what you're seeing now represents all of
You
those.
say bond, you mean loan, the loan?
The $10 million
Funny.
installment sale,
The funny loan that we.
which was a
Not the $1 million
privately
loan
done
for the-
bond.
Not the $1 million loan for the building,
No,
the $10 million
right.
loan to,
What was
it was like a mortgage.
It's gonna pay off, when they sold the land, they're gonna pay off that.
Yeah, in theory, yeah.
Okay, so, do you take, is of 89,000, is 1,000 of that bank fees and 88,000 is prepayment penalties? I don't know, what's a fair characterization, I don't know.
It was 1% of the $8 million loan, so 80,000 of that is the loan. The $8 million, what was left of the $8 million loan. So the other is non-loan, or non-big loan.
Okay, and then.
That shows up all the way through your
Of the
numbers, right?
$89,000 variance, all of that is the prepayment penalties. Otherwise, we are on track with our normal bank
Okay,
fees.
okay. So the prepayment penalty for the mortgage.
Was about $9,000.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I just, Pam touched on it, overtime expense, that was up pretty good, but is that because of the two spills that we had?
Yeah, big chunk of that is the Green Bay Force Main and then the Evergreen spill. Those had
And the Green Bay Force Main, that was where one of our own consultants drilled a hole, or do we get reimbursed for that? Or do they have insurance? Or-
They drilled the hole, I mean, they drilled the pipe.
they,
They were testing the pipe and they drilled through it.
It's all public money.
Well, we can sue them.
Maybe they had insurance. Let's see, well, 1 of 12, I don't know what 1 of 12 is. With the pie chart, key indicators, maybe this is this maybe part of C? I had this packet apart, where the pie chart is.
I think it's part of B.
It's part of B.
That's part of C?
Part of B.
Oh, it's part of B, okay. Oh, okay. So cash receipts, 8.4, I guess it's million, there's no M on that one, but it must be 8.4 million.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not 8. So, you know, that's what we just talked about. Insurance, on C, on page 3 of 12. Insurance includes excess liability. This expenditure is higher than budget due to the payout of an insurance claim in December. Are we self-insured?
No, but we have a $25,000 deductible on
Okay.
each claim.
What insurance claim was that?
That particular one, I would have to look at it.
So, did the board authorize the selling of an insurance claim? I don't remember even hearing about an insurance claim. So-
The insurance company settles it.
The what?
The insurance company settles it. We filed the claim and when a resident or a property owner files a claim stating that they have had their property damaged as a result of the activities of the district. We submit the claim to the insurance company, and the insurance company settles it.
Well, we have no idea. Is this the one about Roca maybe, where it blew into the apartments at one of the units?
Not yet, no. That one has not come to
That one's still
end.
new, still coming?
We can find out what this claim was for.
I think the board needs to know what that is.
Okay, we'll report out on that, or back on it.
But I presume that the 25,000 is part of our contract with the insurance.
Yes.
It's not something we vote on.
No.
Well, if they made a claim against the agency,
No,
didn't they make a claim against the agency?
no, well, people made a claim against the agency.
Right.
We turn it over to the insurance company, like we turn over to Geico in your car accident.
Sure.
If you have a $100 deductible, you put your $100 up,
Okay.
and then Geico settles the claim.
Okay.
So we have a $25,000 deductible.
Just show up someplace in a consent calendar or something that we settle
Yeah.
a little lawsuit.
We can
It's not a
expand the
lawsuit.
footnote to, when we're making these, just to give you at least the basics on what the claim was, if that would help. It is somewhat after the fact, but it's part of the standard business, but we can give you a basic, if it's useful on any insurance claims, we can just provide a quick sentence in the footnotes as to what it was in regards to. Kind of your guys' preference.
Then on page 4 of 12, the sewer service charges, and it's down, it looks like 53,884.
The line you-
Well, I guess that's for the first 6 months, I don't know. And it's down because the businesses that are on a flow base use less water. Is that how that means?
Businesses, and actually, one of the biggest drops has been within the governmental agencies' direct bill that are also done on flow-based. A lot of the schools have done some conservation efforts that have resulted in a huge drop in their use of water.
Okay, so that's probably gonna be about 100,000 end of the year, I would imagine, if it's 52,000 in the first half. That's all I need.
What's our standard for revising budgets? Is there, only the budget agencies have guidelines about publishing a revised budget?
Different agencies do it differently. I personally have had both, where we track them strictly as variances. And when I was at more of a general services type city, they tended to, because you're dealing with general funds and so forth, they have a slightly different approach. They tended to favor periodic amendments.
So then they had to track all the amendments, you had to have notes and all that other stuff to
Correct.
explain
Yeah.
why one budget's different than the other. So it takes a while to have to,
Just as a note, we are under no legal requirement, the way a municipality is, who has a general fund, to do budget amendments. Variances are actually perfectly legal and okay. Doesn't affect our ability to manage the business.
So different from the cities then?
Yes, cities that have general funds usually have to make appropriations or encumbrances based on budget and transfer funds back and forth, say from one department or division to another,
And they
out
have-
of the general
They actually have to
fund.
revise the budget by law. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I have one more question on page 3 of 4 on line items. On, I think it's line 158. I highlighted it, but I forgot to bring it up to the finance committee. For encroachment permits of $16,000.
Right. Construction, it's related, we have to pay the local municipalities for the various encroachment permits that we get to work in the streets. So basically, all of our municipalities, San Anselmo, Larkspur, et cetera.
Are some cities more than others? Or standard average?
Very widely.
That's a lot of money. I haven't seen that much money.
Well, if you do a simple home improvement project, you're gonna be paying county fees in the low thousands of dollars, so
In this particular,
encroachment fees are, yeah, they add up.
In this particular case, it was paid to Ranger Pipelines, who was our contractor for the Group A projects. So it is probably encroachment permits in total for several municipalities or areas, county, towns, city.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know. Yeah, right, that's where it works.
All right, anything else on consent items? Thank you.
C, on C. So, C is the mid-year report. Right? And so I'm on page 2, where it says bond proceeds, $8,200,000. That was budgeted. Actual $8,206,000, variance $6,800. Is that, did we sell $8.2 million in bonds? Is that what we sold the first half of the year? So we have authorization for, what is it, $17,900,000?
We actually sold the total amount
We sold the total
and
amount.
then paid off.
These are the proceeds that we can flow through our budget. The remainder was used to pay off debt.
This is the net.
Yeah, thank you.
This is where we're looking for.
Okay. So I think we need a reporting for the bonds that were sold, how much was sold, and where the money went.
We
You,
did
uh,
we did that.
We did that.
We did that about 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Did it on the finance committee and then did it here in the board.
I don't remember you telling me where all the money went.
With a list of
There's
6 or 7.
I guess there's a name for the report, Rick, it shows the distribution of all the funds. Just
Like an
line,
escrow, yeah.
it's probably 15 lines long, it shows exactly where all the fees went, what the net proceeds to the district were. I don't have it with me, it was
I'll
something.
go home. Do you think it was how long ago?
Oh, it was shortly, well, it would have been roughly the same month that we closed on
Oh,
the
in
bond sale.
September, I would think, or October.
You had we saw a preliminary version just before the bondsman's market, which had the final estimate of all the fees and the net revenue, et cetera, or the net proceeds, I should say. And then after, basically, right at the point when everything went to sale, it was locked down, and we had the final numbers, we brought back an updated version of that. We could send you one very.
Well, we asked for it in the finance committee, and then that one was brought back to this.
Okay, so put some context, I'll jump back to page 1 of 12 on B. At the bottom of B, it says cash receipts for August include $8.4 million for the installment liability payoff and $8.2 million in revenue bond proceeds for capital projects.
Right, so we,
That comes to $16,600,000, so I'm wondering where the other $1,300,000 is.
that's what the breakdown shows. You have all the various, different fees, et cetera. I couldn't tell you, we can give you the report though. I'll email you the PDF of that report, the final bond proceeds report.
Down at the bottom, it says overtime required for emergency responses created unfavorable by variance of $40,000.
On page 2.
Yeah, just page 2 of 8C. They're done. 2 isn't really numbered, I don't think. But it is 2. Yeah, it does have a number.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Personnel shortages, we were slowly down completion of capital, which result in unfavorable balance. And capitalized labor, et cetera. So, did some of the bonding pay for that capitalized labor?
It's not, no, I don't believe any of the bond funds, I don't believe any of the bond funds go to that. No.
They can
No,
eventually.
yeah,
They can.
They can, but,
It's better to put it right.
Okay, I just think having a mid-year reporting on the bond, separate from everything else, separate from revenue from taxes, revenue from hookup fees, et cetera, would be a good thing to have, so you know where the money was spent. But anyway, okay, that's all I
We
have.
put it in each month.
All right, anything else on the consent calendar? Can I have a motion?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Oh, I'll
All
second
right,
that.
motion, Sullivan?
Wait. Is,
On the motion, a second.
oh, on the,
Discussion.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know D was on there. Is D just like a thing, like something we just have to go through? Yes. It's no,
Performance.
yeah, okay, never mind. Okay.
All right, I have a motion and a second for the consent calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. And now, I believe, we get to meet the LAFCO executive officer. Greg, you want to set it up?
Sure, I'll, do
Set him
it
up?
quick. Set him up. So, Keen Simmons is the new executive officer for the Marin County LAFCO. And we had the pleasure of meeting several months back when he was already a few months into his job, and we finally got around to meeting. And we've been trying to stay in pretty regular contact to make sure what's going on at LAFCO, what's going on in the district. We're in touch on all of that. I forget who initiated this, but regardless, I'm just really pleased to have Keen here this evening just to say a few words about what's going on at LAFCO, and I will stop there.
Well, thank you. And again, Keen Simons, the relatively new executive officer at Local Agency Formation Commission. I've been practicing not saying the acronym up front, and the whole wording. But we are, of course, the friendly planning arm of the state of California legislature with respect to overseeing cities and special districts, boundaries, and municipal service areas. And as Greg alluded to, I've been on the job here in Marin now 4 months. I've made it past 4 months. I've got 2 more to make through to probation, so I'm on my best behavior. Before that, I was 7 years the executive officer in Napa County. Really my visit today, which I initiated, which was Greg was nice enough to put me on your agenda tonight, is there's really 2 goals. Selfishly, the first goal is for me to get before you so I can start putting some faces to names as part of my duties. And then secondly, for the district's benefit, because as we just talked about with my commission today as part of our annual strategic planning session, Marin LAFCO is going to be a little more proactive in our regulatory and planning duties, and in particular, how we go about our study mandate from the legislature. And just a little context. Before 2001, there was a LAFCO in every county, okay? And LAFCO, for the most part, was rarely seen unless there was a proposal that was brought to it, either to form a special district or a city or to expand the boundaries or something of that nature. Well, the legislature deduced that LAFCOs as a whole were not proactively informing their regulatory decision-making. So beginning in 2001, all LAFCOs have to be in the business of preparing studies on a regular basis. We call them municipal service reviews. And these studies essentially are our independent snapshot of the availability, depth, and performance of services relative to our big end-of-the-day task, which is matching service provision with community needs. Again, this third-party independent viewpoint. So with that new charge in mind, this commission went about its inaugural cycle of studies, and I believe in 2006 incorporated a review of this district as part of a broader review of San Rafael and Ross Valley. And under the law, we should have come back to you by 2012, but we got distracted a bit looking at issues in South Marin County with respect to sewer districts. We finally have extracted ourselves out of that discussion, and by way of my discussion today with the Commission, it would be fair to say and get on your radar that within the next 24 months, LAFCO will be back before you looking at the Ross Valley region specifically looking at the services, fire, water, sewer, police, roads, and so on, all within the end goal of informing sphere of influence updates. So my visit today is really just to get that on your radar. I've already had some very helpful discussions with Greg. Even though he's still a newbie, he knows a lot more about Marin than I do, which has helped me quite a bit as Greg's eyebrows raised. With that, I'm going to stop there and just, if you had any initial comments or questions for LAFCO that I could send to my 11 bosses, I'd certainly be happy to do that. In absence of any immediate feedback, I certainly hope that when the time comes, again in the next 24 months, that I could come back with a more formal presentation on what we're about to start and hopefully get some good feedback before we put pen to paper.
So I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I asked your predecessor several years ago, what were the barriers to forming, that San Francisco has twice our population and has one public works department and one sewer district. What were the barriers to us in Marin forming a single sewer district and merging everything together and having a single board and multiple treatment plants, multiple collection areas, but having one single system, which would be far more efficient, although politically maybe a little more difficult. And he didn't want to touch the answer to that question. So I'll throw that in your lap. It's 4 months into the job.
Well, probably two reasons, and Peter Banning was correct probably to be careful on answering that question. But as a newbie, and I still probably can use that for the next 2 months and get away with it, there's two reasons probably something like that has not happened or probably would not happen, at least in the immediate future. One is you do have these distinct watershed basins. And so you end up having standalone collection systems to begin with. And so that somewhat takes the edge off of the idea of, and I guess I'm answering it more towards a sanitary aspect or sewer aspect. But perhaps the real answer is politics, right? Every land use authority, you have 11, actually 12 of them, you have 11 cities, you have the county, all have a different perspective of what makes their particular jurisdiction unique or local. And for many reasons they are correct. You also have community residents who like the idea of having a more direct conduit to getting something done. The idea of whether it be a countywide water department, because you have essentially 6, if you count the West Marin, or sewer, or even a single fire department. While on paper it makes sense, I think the realities of politics, and politics sometimes gets there's a negative connotation. Politics in itself is a good use and a good vet to understand what happens in Ross Valley, what happens in San Francisco are different. Now, as a newbie, I had trouble figuring out the difference between Belvedere and Tiburon in my first tour, but the locals made sure to tell me there was a big difference. And you know what? Now 4 months into it, I do see there is a little difference. Do they still need to have 2 standalone cities? Now, we don't need to put that part of it.
You have to be careful.
But LAFCO is a unique government entity, and that type of question is something that we do think about. And I'm glad that others are
Well, I asked
asking
Katie
that.
Bryce the same question, so it's not.
And what did she say?
She said she didn't want to go there yet. Right?
Were you there when down in Southern Marin they had an election on merging some sanitary districts?
No, that happened, I believe, in December or January. December of
I was there.
12 or January of 13. I came aboard September of 13.
All right, you missed it.
Yes, and gladly so. So, but of course, as we talked about today, the commission has a formal policy on record saying they believe these 4 sanitation districts should consolidate. That hasn't gone away, and so when we go back to that as required by law in 4 years, the commission will have to ask itself, does it want to repeat the exercise or perhaps massage the exercise for a different purpose?
Is your dealing with the cities changed at all under the law? The cities seem to be exempted in some sense from giving up their sanitary districts.
You know, admittedly, my interactions with the cities in Marin have been limited to just meeting with the city managers. Marin is different from where I came from in Napa and even before that in Los Angeles, in that the county's land use policies are not that distinct or in contrast to some of the cities. For example, if you're in Sleepy Hollow, I don't know necessarily if you get that much more allowance being in this, you know, in San Anselmo as you do staying in the county. Whereas in other counties that I've been in, there's a much more stark contrast between what the county would permit you to do versus what a city. That's part of my learning curve here in Marin.
The wonderful unincorporated areas of the city.
Wild West.
I call it the Baja regions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of the next time, hopefully you will see me. I do hope to have a study schedule adopted by the Marin Commission in the next 2 or 3 meetings. That will prescribe exactly when I anticipate we will schedule a review of the Ross Valley. And certainly when we do that, I know that I'll be reaching out to your staff for input to help us understand what are the issues that you see from the district's perspective that should be looked at, whether it's a governance comment or simply a local policy issue that really needs to be explained and incorporated into the LAFCO document, whether it's helping to justify why the rates are what they are or why your boundaries are the way they are. So with that, I was promised that this would be a lively meeting. I don't know if it will be, but I am going to stick around just for the benefit of hearing you deliberate. And again, thank you for the time.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Simons. Is it Simons or Simmons?
Simons, like diamonds. I used that line on my wife when I was a little younger.
It worked, right?
It did.
All right.
Thank you. Item number 10, consideration. Oh, sure. Take a break.
Yeah, they did ours.
Earlier.
I know,
We put it off to like
asked it to be
6:39.
brought back.
Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. With the caveat that I'm really not feeling the virus that my children have and I have, so there might be a possibility that I will excuse myself.
It's been long in here.
Okay. Item number 10, consideration of approving a professional services agreement with Brown Caldwell.
Okay, I will introduce this and then hand it over. So what you have in front of you this evening is a action item, the award of a professional services agreement for the design and services during construction contract for the Magnolia trunk line replacement project. And so it's a fairly lengthy staff report, relatively lengthy, so I'm going to just try to hit the highlights on the background. So the Magnolia trunk line is definitely one of the key large diameter gravity sewers in the district system. And as we know, back in back in 2012, it had a unexpected and sudden catastrophic failure that resulted in pretty substantial emergency repairs to replace about 1,000 feet of that line. The remainder of the Magnolia trunk line is basically, it varies, but the same risk is at play in the remainder of that line. The project was identified early on. It's been on the district's capital planning radar for a couple of years. It was also considered in terms of its risk profile in the infrastructure asset management plan, and the project is also addressed specifically in the 2013 cease and desist order from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So we've been In the run-up to getting this project underway, in one phase or another for the better part of the last year, in November, the board authorized the issuance of a request for proposals on the project. The staff went forward with that, and we advertised the proposals, received a really pretty strong set of responses. We had 7 proposals submitted on this, widely ranging proposals, which led to a fairly extensive evaluation process on the proposals to arrive at the recommendation. Couple of things of note on this contract. It's really covering a relatively wide range of services. This includes the initial inspection and condition assessment of the remaining Magnolia trunk line, recommendations for the preferred replacement or rehabilitation methods, the actual engineering design of the project, and then what's termed the services during construction, SDC is the acronym, and construction management services when this does go out to bid. Now, to be clear, there will be a separate construction contract issued in the future for this project. The contract under consideration this evening is strictly for the condition assessment, design, and then subsequently, in parallel with the future construction, the services during construction and construction management. The budgetary estimates for the project in total are approximately $3.3 to $3.8 million. The reason it's a range is that there's a lot of uncertainty with the final scope of this work, because it, by its very nature, depends on the exact findings and recommendations that come out of the condition assessment. And plus, like any large, relatively old underground facility, you have some uncertainties in your scopes until you're actually underway. So, but again, the budgetary estimate that we've been working with and is reflected in all of our financial planning is in that range of 3.3 to 3.8 million. When we closed out or ended the proposal window, as I mentioned, we had 7 proposals, a mix of engineering firms, and we went through basically a 3-phase review process to try and whittle those down. The very first phase of the review was what I would call sort of the strictly numeric, and it was done by 4 individual people, including myself. We basically just did an initial ranking across the board and used that to go from the initial 7 to a subset of 4. And the reason on that was simply that the first review made it very clear that you had a cluster of about 3 proposals, 3 teams that were in one class, so to speak, and 4 that had substantially higher qualifications and experience and resources for the magnitude of the job. The second phase was we then took those 4 and did essentially a much more in-depth review of those 4, including their specific cost breakdowns, where they had allocated budgets and so forth, to make sure we understood how they were viewing the job. And then that took us down to 2, and the final, the final evaluation was between the 2 highest ranked firms. I do want to point out that this is a professional services. It's not a construction bidding process, and why that's important is we start out with what we call a qualifications-based selection process, where you're really largely starting with looking for a highly qualified teams, And then we're going to costs and so forth as the next refining factor. So when we have the 4 highest ranked proposals on the basis of qualifications, and we compared their costs, their estimates, it was noted that they were within about plus or minus 10% of each other. And that's good in the sense that to have 4 independent teams give you their estimates of the job and have them be plus or minus 10 to 12% means that you're seeing a fairly common interpretation of the scope of work, complexity of the work, how to approach it, and so forth, because this is, again, a relatively complex job. So, again, that was a good thing to see the 4 highest ranked qualifications-based proposals have fairly tight price ranges. Again, I think I already covered this, but in the final 3rd step, we reviewed in more detail the final 2 firms, and very specifically to some of the highest priority needs that we see on this job. Some of those are touched on in the staff report, but examples, again, involve demonstrated capability of working on these high visibility, high public impact, complicated, long linear projects like this, and a demonstrated track record of, covering both the technical basis, you're having a good design, you have solid engineering services, but equally, or at least generally equally important, is that this is going to be a very high profile, potentially high impact job simply because of the location. We're going to be impacting at least a mile of the Magnolia corridor, a number of very high profile public and private properties, and a very high volume traffic corridor as well. So we're looking for a demonstrated track record that combines both the technical resources, the horsepower to deliver the project steadily and quickly and not get pulled off on other things, and also handling those other issues such as the public-private interface and a good track record on working in those types of environments. So the final recommendation from that evaluation was for the award of the contract to Brown Caldwell, and that is staff's recommendation. The board package materials that you have in front of you include the staff report, the original request for proposals, which includes a sample contract, the map of the project area, which I think most of you are probably pretty familiar with, and also a sort of a summary matrix comparison of the evaluations. I will stop there. Those are the kind of the highlights of the staff report and the thinking behind the staff recommendation. It's a very important contract, important decision for the district. So we have put this one through what I have intended to be a pretty thorough vetting process. And with that, I will hand it back to the board and answer any questions.
Board, any questions?
I do. So Charlie, you've probably got a look. I mean, I'm not sure if you all have looked at the CCTV information we already have, or I mean,
we have not done full CCTV on that.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, because I know that there's ACP out there.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not sure how many linear feet there is, but we have to treat that stuff a little differently.
I can write specs for that.
Okay. And then the SWIPs, the last outfit that was out in that neighborhood really made a mockery of stormwater pollution prevention. And I was out there driving when J&B was working up in the woodlands and all that, and they weren't maintaining their SWIPs at the DIs. And that's, of course, there's Salmonid Creeks, there's the Cordondera Creek, and I drive through there all the time, and I'll probably be driving through on the way home frequently. And I just want to let whoever the construction inspectors are, whoever that ends up being, that I'm not going to miss it. When something's wrong, I'll let people know.
Absolutely, you should.
Okay. I always end up getting disappointed on projects for one reason or another. I see it where I work. I've seen it for years, where there's a book, thick book of technical spec. Okay, and technical spec is the Bible. So bypass pumping, pigging lines off, following the protocols that are embedded in that document are what protect our system from failure down the road, especially if we stick to it. If we don't stick to it, we really lose our ability to come back on the contractor, the way I see it.
Very true.
So I am frequently disappointed in the work I do dealing with inspection. I don't think it's any different here. I mean, I know it's a challenge. And, you know, if liners start failing, I'm going to come back and make a fuss. If manholes are poured so they don't seal properly or don't pass their vacuum testing, or enough bypass pumps aren't on site, you know, I find out about it, I'm going to raise holy heck. And I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. You know, hopefully someone will stop me before I go too much farther. Okay, so please, guys, make sure that the people we're paying are truly doing a thorough job. And if they don't know what they're doing, get them off the job and get someone in there who can. Please. Thanks.
Sure.
Other board members, questions, discussion?
I'm just always shocked at how much it costs to fix a line pipe. You know, it's a mile, and it's going to cost us $3-4 million. It's a critical pipe.
Yes, so, trying to sort it all out, and, you know, once again, the board was not given the bid sheets with the bid amounts and the comparisons. I'm used to seeing in other agencies, the names, the bid amounts, et cetera, we were given that. But, back in November, we authorized this project to go to bid. And the board approved it, and it was in an amount not to exceed $800,000. That was the board action, $800,000. I see tonight, the recommendation is to spend $874,000, $74,000 more than the board authorized to go to bid. That's problem number one. So I actually read almost everything that came in the packet except the bid things. I've gone through all the bid documents, because this time we did get the bid documents. So,
He wants to see the actual documents.
B and C at 874 is the highest of the 7 bids. The lowest was EC at $486,269. Newton Engineering bid $529,139. West Yost, $686,347. Lucci was actually pretty low at $459,750. That was the low bid. The average of the 7 bids was $656,000, and the recommendation tonight is go with the high bidder at $218,000 more than the average of the 7 bids. So in reading the staff report, on page 2, it says staff recommends accepting the proposal entering the agreement with Brown Quality Developer, 874. And it goes on to say, the third bullet down, it says familiarity with unique issues of the Magnolia truck line because they had recent experience working on the emergency. And I guess the emergency, is that the one that we did in 2012 when we replaced about 1,000 feet? Is that the emergency that they worked on?
That's correct.
And that was open trenchment.
And so that's given us a reason why this firm should be hired. And for that project, the low bidder was Major Gelati at $725,000, and when the project finished out, it was $1.4 million. Not quite double, but almost double. So if we're using that as the benchmark for how good this company is going to control this next project, I've got some real concerns. So I'm wondering, who were the 4 employees? I guess it was Greg and Randall, and who were the other 2 employees? Was it Randall? Okay.
No, Randall recused himself from the review.
Okay.
It was myself, John Vogel, Catherine, district.
A CCTV lead operator, an assistant engineer, and a contract employee.
You said we have an engineer on that?
So Catherine Hayden is assistant district engineer.
Okay, so Catherine was part one of it, okay.
Right. John Vogel, who is our lead CCTV and condition assessment
Okay.
person. Laura, just reading them from her background as in reviewing proposals and so forth.
Who else was it?
Uh,
Our minute clerk?
Sorry, Laura. Yeah. And then myself.
How will this project be paid for in the end? It's going to come to what, 3.3 to 3.8? Where's the funds coming to pay for this one?
Well, there ultimately would come out of the capital budgets, right?
Okay. From where? I mean, is that
Our capital
bond money?
budgets.
Is that bond money? Is that future bond money? I mean, is this,
Well, the money's in the near term, this job's gonna stretch over probably at least a minimum 12-month window, so it's gonna span, it would span at least 2 fiscal cycles. So the money's, I think, well, essentially the money comes from the same place any capital project the district does, which is gonna be a combination of our ad valorem tax revenues and our, at the moment, in the near term, our bonding, or our bond revenues.
and we still have, what, 8.2 million left from the bonds? No. How much do we have in that bond account? That's what I was going through on the mid-year report, trying to figure out.
Right. Well, if the, I don't know if this is where you're going with the question, but if the, like, all of the capital projects beyond the end of this fiscal year, there are not going to be sufficient resources for those projects. I mean, so it's gonna be a combination of future bonds and ad valorem tax monies. And thirdly, to the extent that the district makes any changes to its revenue structure in the future, that's gonna be where the money comes from. Yeah.
So all of our bond money is gone. We spent it all.
No.
17.9 million?
No, so out of the 17 million, almost half of that went to, or more, went to pay off the old
Right.
debts.
Yeah.
The rest of it was put in our account and has been there, and it's still, some portion of it's still there. We've just been using it, up till now, we've only spent the monies we've only spent monies for projects that have actually gotten completed or underway. And so at the moment, that's nowhere near the 8 million. So there are funds sitting in our account. They're not tagged specifically for this project per se. They're part of the capital fund, and there's a whole series of projects that'll be drawing out of that capital fund. So I guess, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Don't we have an obligation to report the bonding, how it was
Use of
spent?
the funds?
To
Sure,
somebody?
absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Maybe the finance committee's seen it, but I haven't seen it. But, okay, so,
Wait a minute, let me say it again. We have to specify, we spend money for capital. We have to say what percentage of the capital project is
I
paid for with bonds.
believe that this agency sold public bonds. They need to report to the public exactly how much that money went for whatever project it went to.
Right.
Now, I may be wrong on that.
Well, we
but-
do report how much money was spent on each project in their capital. But I mean,
No, no,
you want us to
no,
say
I'm more
17.3% came out of the bond? and
No,
I'm trying to
here's
figure out
what
what
I'm
you want.
saying. I want to know where the bond money went. I want to know, right, we're
we
saying
have a
about
The
29
bond
million.
money's in the bank. Yeah, the bond money's in the bank.
Sure.
And for our purposes, it's under, the capital fund. And that capital fund has monies coming in and monies going out. And right now, the monies going out they haven't been anywhere near the 8 million that the net deposits that were put in. It's, so I guess, let me back up a second. When we issued the bonds, we did provide a fairly clear statement of what those monies would be used for. And therefore, there's no, it was very clear, it was to pay off the old bond debt, it was to finance these types of projects. And so we described that in the bond issuance
And you
itself.
tied a monetary value to that expense.
Correct. So we, at the moment, if you were to say, what have we done with the bond funds? I guess the short answer would be, a small portion of them have been spent since the time we got the money. I say a very small portion, because we don't have that much work underway at the moment. That's actually incurring expenses. And the rest of it is sitting in the bank, so to speak, waiting to be spent on capital projects.
Given the history of this agency, I'm concerned about how the $17.9 million in bond money is being spent and where it's going.
Okay?
Let's take a look.
In approving this project tonight, we're $414,000 over the low bid, $388,000 more than the second bidder, $344,000 more than the third bidder, and for some reason the staff threw those out. One of those is new engineer who's done work for this agency for years and years and years. I can't believe that new engineering, whatever they are, doesn't know Magnolia, doesn't know this agency, the lines like the back of their hand. You just say they were thrown out. So for myself, I can't possibly vote for this to spend at least $218,000 more than we should be. The day of reckoning is coming, and when we've got to go to the public and explain how we spent this money and why we picked the highest bidder instead of the middle bidder or the lowest bidder is beyond, I can't do that, I can't justify that. But anyway, that's my comments for this project.
But I guess I'll just offer this, this is not a construction contract. So it's not what's traditionally termed a low bid contract. And if you look at the spread of estimates of the cost of the work between the 7 proposers, and you read their proposals.
I read them all.
Okay. In my technical interpretation, they very quickly branched into 2 groups. Those who clearly had an extensive track record and technical expertise and depth of resources to do this job, and those that didn't. 3 of them very quickly went into those that don't. The other 4 went into the pile that passed the first cut. So when you talk about low bid, I think the first thing to do would be to say low bid between comparable teams. And if you take the top 4 teams that were selected on the basis of qualifications, their costs vary about plus or minus, I think, 10 to 12%. So there's a much tighter spread on those top qualified firms. Professionally, what that tells me was that they had a distinctly different and more thorough understanding of what the overall project was going to take to do. So the cost issue on this, it's very important, I don't want to dismiss it, but to look at, say, I forget the one firm, it's Pacelli or Alici. To say, well, Belici's 400 and Corello or Grant Caldwell is 7 or 8. Right there tells you that those 2 teams had vastly different interpretations of what the nature of this work is. And that's a professional judgment call, but
You didn't think of throwing out the high bid and the low bid and then concentrating on this signature?
no, we didn't approach it that now.
So if I hadn't gone through these and written down all the bid amounts, this board would have never known how much the other 6 bidders bid on this project. That's no way to run an organization.
No, we have the top 4 bids, right? They're easily that way. What we don't have are the 3 bottom bids.
It's cost comparison right here. It's just before attachment C, right?
Is it in with the contract? No, it's item 11.
It's, there are Excel sheets, and there's attachment B, it's part of attachment B, which is three Excel sheets. And it has the peach, I think
You are colorblind.
Yeah, I don't have it in my packet, that's okay, no big deal.
Here, you got mine.
Don't worry about it, I've read the whole packet, I've read everybody's packet, I've added them all up. I've covered it myself. We're throwing away $200,000 of taxpayers' money by going by the high bidder. Thank you very much, that's all I have to say.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Charlie.
Yes.
Why do you think you can get this job done in 12 months rather than 20 months?
Well, our assumption on the project right now is we can do majority of this project with rehabilitation, particularly the stretch that comes down right from here up toward Magnolia, actually, and Doherty, to the Tech Height area. And I really want to avoid digging that up because you're right to bay muds, tidally influenced groundwater. Some of the things we learned on the Magnolia emergency trunk system that drove those costs up, which you commented on earlier. And then we have a very good specification I've used on other projects for remove and replace associated with asbestos cement pipe. It's a very prescriptive process you have to go through for the state. You know how to do that and you can make that happen. We're going to sit down, if the board chooses to approve this tonight, and literally sit down with Randall and the district team tomorrow on our kickoff meeting and get this work moving. And we've identified 3, possibly 4 locations where we need to meet with property owners early because of where the facility is located, and we think we can make that happen.
Well, comparing to Corolla, which is the second in line per 4 people who made that assessment, I don't understand why it would make it better to close the job up sooner when there's within 10% of the same assessment of how much it's going to cost. So how would that make it better?
Well, it really makes it better with the community because we're not in the street as long, and our whole construction period is a shorter time frame. A lot of, I don't know what Corolla had in their schedule, what they assume for construction, but we can do the construction work and get out of the community's impact sooner. I think there's a big benefit for everybody. And that usually helps control your cost also, from a construction standpoint.
Can you save us $100,000 compared to Corolla?
I thought you said 200,000.
No, they're $100,000 over Corolla.
But you,
No, Frank said
he settled on one.
No, I mean, shortening the time that you're working on something,
Yes.
and shortening the amount of time you mobilize all your construction folks, and all that stuff saves money. So can you save us the difference in your contract? That's-
I think the upfront engineering will reflect I would think reflecting cost savings during the bidding process. Upfront.
Because
solid
the last
engineering.
time, when there was an emergency, we didn't have the benefit of having the
Right.
Exactly.
upfront engineering ahead of time, and the cost controls put into it.
And then the locations, I mean, if we compare the last project to this project, which I have a problem with, because, we were off to the side of the roadway, and there were still some challenges, but we're gonna be in direct conflict with the public right-of-way, where there's probably a lot more infrastructure
Traffic, high
traffic.
school traffic and one.
Well, actually, it's just-
We have a middle school, we've got the racket club,
And
we've
then
got
you've
Bon
got-
Air with Bon Air intersection, we've got
Right,
the hardware store, we've got some
Right.
really
There's
problem
that.
But
areas.
the only place you cross the street is between Corbett's and
You'll say for
The traffic is underground and above ground for sure, and that'll be challenging.
Oh, underground, yeah.
What I'm hoping that when I see the actual design you know, as solutions for replacing pipe that'll save us money, like you said, at the contractor end. And I'm hoping someone is considering swage lighting,
Sweet lining.
in lieu of maybe CIPP in some places. Whether they, you know,
We haven't even worded the
Because-
contract yet,
I know, but at least
Yeah.
take a little bit outside of the little box we've built.
No, I've considered that technology in other projects. There are some, without going into a lot of, there's some real technical
Right.
details associated
Depends on the
with
setting and everything
where it can
else.
work and where it can't work.
Yeah, you guys will know better than me on that, but I'm just saying, I'm not totally sold on CIPP.
Appreciate that. And, you know, if you evaluate the tech guy's too far, I couldn't recommend it.
If you can't do CPP, it's already costed.
Well, I don't know the condition of all of it, but
Yeah.
No, the tech guy's, we've seen pictures of the tech guy.
I haven't seen the
Both.
condition of this here.
No, I don't know.
Anyway, the point is, you know where you want to put whatever,
Right.
but saving money on the construction end is hopefully, we can get it back.
That's, my plans are usually pretty solid.
Spend a little more up front and get it back on the back end.
Yes, that would be my goal, but.
So when the board went out to bid, authorized not to exceed 800,000, the bid comes at 874. So really, we don't need this board to even bother going up to bid, because it doesn't matter what they say, the bid's gonna come out, whatever it is, and, you know, I don't know what to tell you. It says not to exceed $800,000, this bid is $874,000.
That was our engineer's estimate of the services cost, Frank.
Mhm.
That's what we put out for guidance,
Okay.
and that's the typical wording.
We were pretty close on 6 of them.
Right. I mean, it's,
Oh, wait, is that true? So we agreed on 800,000 previously, but we did not agree on 874.
we had a staff, basically engineering estimate, so to speak, of an amount of 800,000. So that's our typical wording is to put that out, is to say we want an amount not to exceed. And in this case, we arrived at a number that is higher than what we estimated. That's basically how the,
So this is like two items, actually,
no, one item.
even though you went over other costs.
When we provide that number, I mean, we're providing you, that's a target. It's like when we go out for a construction job and we say, well, the engineer's estimate is $1 million. We might get bids that are 1.2, we might get bids that are 800,000. We're saying, we're offering that up, or we're putting that forth as a not to exceed number. Basically, it's our best estimate at the time. And we sometimes arrive at numbers that are lower than that. And,
I guess what I just don't,
So not to exceed doesn't mean not to exceed.
yeah, I mean, it's like, it's either 800 on the initial one, or this is a change in the initial bid price.
There was no initial bid, there was a
There wasn't?
request for proposals
Okay,
that we put out. So again, to me, it's analogous to, we put out a construction call for bids. It's our best estimate at the time.
But
So
the- but
so
the-
it's predicated on an estimate, not an not to exceed.
Well, that was the language we used.
Yeah, it's not, I would, it's acknowledged, it's not, I mean,
The English language is really tough.
yeah.
So it wasn't a qualification of the RFP that the bidders not exceed $800,000.
It was, absolutely it
You
was.
want to address that? What your interpretation?
Cost is a factor as in all projects. In terms of the qualification-based review, cost was one of the factors that you see on the attachment B that was considered as how well that consultant understood the costs associated with providing the service to the district. And as mentioned previously by General Manager Norby, the top 4 that are on the second attachment B understood the scope of work and the level of effort they would have to provide the district better. And I did want to point to Mr. Joyce in the back about how the proposal covered not only issues that could be encountered on this project, but offered solutions to how they would address them, including team working with the community and so forth.
You know, one thing I wanted to put forward wasn't actually in the request for proposals. We included it on our project, lessons learned from other projects actually, and that was we actually have a right-of-way agent and time for our surveyor to develop plat legal descriptions associated with temporary construction easements at the locations we believe you will need to have those temporary construction easements in order to proceed with the work. The middle school next door, the racket club, the hardware store in particular. And that quite honestly is about $75,000.
In reading the staff report from November, it says, here's the recommendation for the board to, number one, authorize a request for proposals for engineering design for bidding, construction, management services, and engineering services during construction for the Magnolia Avenue trunk line rehabilitation in Larkspur in an amount not to exceed $800,000. That was the first option. Number two, other action is determined by the board, or take no action at this time. The board chose number one, with a amount not to exceed $800,000.
And since then, it's moved up 74,000.
No, the board gets to vote again on whatever it wants to do.
Well,
The board voted on that, we have a new proposal, we can vote on that, we can vote it down, or we can vote on it.
But it has changed.
Yeah, from my perspective, if I saw a not to exceed and I was writing a grant proposal, I would think that was a ceiling. But you're saying that's not the pattern and practice in this industry, that you can exceed it. I mean, it seems like it wouldn't be a good thing as a bidder.
No. Ideally, you want to be the highest qualified and the lowest cost in a perfect world. So,
And, I mean, along Frank's lines, I would ask, tell us why. Tell us why we should choose this highest bidder when the
Right.
scores you're giving us do seem pretty darn close.
right,
It doesn't look great to choose the highest bidder.
right, right.
Do you have anything else, Frank?
No,
See, here's the thing, Charlie. I'll be right up front with you, right? You've been on some projects with us, okay? You know our district, all right? Our district knows you. If I were looking at this from, I'm looking at it from maybe 80,000 feet. I would think that maybe the district wants to work with you, okay? Now, the way this plays out, as far as the scoring, okay, these board members are right. They're not looking at it necessarily the way the recommendation is based. So, that would be something that would jump out at me too. I mean, I'm already looking at it, but I'm listening to what everyone else is saying too. So I think what's happened here is it is a very high price. And there's other folks in the mix that sound as though they're doing almost, in some cases, equal work.
But Greg and the staff have made the recommendation, which is why I directed my questions to him. So, is there what would you say to that?
Well, I would say a combination. I think we are looking, the teams have taken different approaches to the job, and they've shown different emphasis of where they want to put the resources. And they've also, in some cases, because our proposal, our RFP, does not go to every single detail of what the services might entail. So, for example, the item that Charlie mentioned a moment ago, the right-of-way services, which is covering, they have allotted somewhere in the neighborhood of $70,000 for the very specific needs of, we have a significant stretch of this pipe that does not have well-defined easements. And we also know that we need to negotiate, or someone's going to possibly negotiate temporary easements for laydown areas and so forth. So if you have included resources for the right-of-way needs and securing those easements, those are basically, you've shown that you've got a more complete suite of services to actually get the work done. and that kind of goes to, you know, how much thought did you put into what it's really going to take to complete this job from A to B? I don't want to, I guess really I would say kind of refer to the evaluation process. That's how we arrived at it. The costs are variable between the top firms. And on a job this complicated, that's got this amount of activity over anywhere from a 12 to 20 month window, depending on which team you're talking to. If you give this job to 10 different teams, you're going to get 10 different numbers. One thing that I would maybe throw out for consideration, and Charlie, I don't know if you guys can address this, this evening, but the job is structured. We put a lot of work into this, meaning the scope involves the preliminary design, the final design, construction management, SDC. There's going to be a fair amount of remaining uncertainty in the exact scope of, for example, the construction management SDC, depending on the actual results of the design. So if there were some way to either, I don't want to say put a cap, because that's not really the right way to look at it, but something that acknowledges that basically there are still some remaining uncertainties in those final numbers that the team brings back for some final change or some final amendment. I don't know if amendment's the right word. Now that it's a little messy. It's not a really good answer to your question, Mary. Really the short version is if you would, based on the approach that they've proposed and the scope of services that they've covered and that they've included, this is a solid proposal in our view. I can't stand here today and explain to you, exactly what the Corolla team's thinking was versus the Brown Caldwell team's thinking. I've sat on these. I've done these proposals in the past professionally, and I know what you do. You have, if you're lucky, you have 20 to 30 days to really just get out there and as fast as you can figure out what this work takes. And teams put varying levels of effort and attention to that effort. That's just how it is, because it's a business decision. You decide how badly do you want this job, how much effort you're going to put into it. So I'm not surprised to see a range of costs and a range of different assumptions about the work, because that's sort of the nature of this phase of the project. I guess I would also emphasize that if we are selecting the right team as we go forward, as we go through design, we're doing that with an eye towards looking for the cost savings opportunities in the final design and the scope of construction services. We can certainly make that a very specific priority going forward. Say, okay, we're looking to carve out or identify, I'm just making up a number, $100,000 between now and the end of the job that we think, if anywhere, it's going to have some possibility of coming out of the latter phases of the job, because that's where the most uncertainty is at the moment, I would suggest. I mean, that's always a good goal to have, for sure. We want to be doing that. But I don't know that we could ask, I don't think we can ask Brown Caldwell this evening and say, okay, tell us how you're going to lop off $100,000 or something from the job. I wouldn't expect you to know the answer to that.
Well, 6 of the bidders stayed under the 800,000. 2 of the bidders, Harris, was 18,700 under the 800,000, and Corell was 24,000 under the. So obviously they made an effort to try to conform to what the district put out. Down the road, what's going to happen, I think, is we're not going to get these bidders. They're going to say, why should I even bother? Because I meant what the conditions, requirements were of the agency, and they don't pay attention to it, so. Anyway, I've said it.
Okay. So Charlie, I'm looking through your portfolio here, and so the projects you have done are these 4 projects you've outlined?
There are some sample projects, yes.
These, okay, and is there other projects, or are these kind of your main projects?
No,
Your history?
I've been doing sewer pipeline work for 35 years. I've done a lot more than 4 projects. So true. We put these in as examples that were particularly relevant to some of the aspects of this project. There also the force main project, of course, being just across the creek, and dealing with the city of Larkspur, in that case, South Alicia. Emerald Trunk project, similar sizes in the 24-inch range, rehabilitation, as well as some surprises that came up during that construction, where the city had thought they'd rehabbed a section of line, and it turned out they hadn't. We had to do a mobilized emergency design on constructed pipe in front of the middle school, literally over a weekend. The Keto Basin work down in Silicon Valley, in the Los Gatos, Saratoga area. Locally, very busy road, Keto Road, if you happen to know, if you know the area at all. We've actually had it closed for the last 3 months while they're doing pipe bursting in that area. And a lot of very expensive residential areas in that regards. Right now, we're dealing with an impact where somebody built a deck and a pool over an 8-inch sewer that we need to upsize to a 12-inch. They did that without a permit. Oops.
I guess what I
So-
don't, oh, I'm sorry.
But I should, we picked these projects because they were representative. The Cedar Boulevard one in particular was a very creative bypassing solution, taking advantage of some storm channels over in Union City to do that work. So that's how we came up with this list of projects. But I can make this list many pages long if you would like.
Yeah, I guess what I see in comparison to Cavallo is they actually put these very well-defined graphs about their team experience and how their projects were, the elements were portrayed, and how they rated them on their experience. And it just gives me a marker to indicate some areas that they really carefully went through to say who they are. I didn't see that in your proposal. And I still am having a hard time. I hear the 12-month versus the 20-month, but knowing in some of these high-tech professional situations, faster is not always better, and you can make mistakes. So I'm not sure I can buy the staff's idea of saying that that would be one of the better criteria to say a project is done really quickly. To me,
Based on
that, yeah, you might be able to do it, but it makes me wonder what is really true, and what is safe. What is the primary issue here is safety, and that the work's done right, as Pat was saying. So I'm very torn on this whole thing. Frank has very good statements to make on how the bids came in. It's interesting, there's none of the guys are here tonight, and these other bidders. I'm really shocked by that. We're dealing with over $800,000. I know there's a lot of, engineers, companies as such, wanting to work. So I don't think I'm gonna vote for this. I don't feel it's solid to me because of the differences in the bidding, and looking at this project portfolio, It is much more complete and substantial. And I know that Charlie's done tons of work for us. I've been here 3.5 years. I don't think I've known any other group, really. I think you've gotten every job since I've been here. Am I right?
No, actually, Harrison Associates is
Oh,
doing
really?
Group A and Group B.
They did, what did they do? I don't know.
They're doing the Group A and the Group B
Oh,
projects.
The 20 projects.
the little things.
Yeah, 3 million worth
So-
of.
Yeah, extensive, yeah.
No, they're not 3 million.
No, the projects were
Group A and B?
together.
Oh.
They're the inspectors.
They're also the designers.
The designers, et cetera.
And I had a couple of the notes.
Let me just jump in and ask a question while you're doing that, Tam.
Well,
If
it's
the,
just because we've had somebody work here before, doesn't necessarily mean that the work's gonna be better. And, you know, I don't like those kind of statements in the staff report. It almost feels a little bit like favoritism, a little bit, or preference.
It's not, the point of mentioning that is not, we want to work with them because we worked with them before, Pam. It's because we worked with them recently on a similar magnitude of complexity and high profile, technically complicated job, and they established a relevant track record. If they had done this work 10 years ago, I would say, doesn't matter. I wouldn't really give it any credence. No one of these factors is what's making the final decision. It's a weighting, it's a consideration of all of these factors. And I will say, because I said to the staff, everyone, that uncertainty, risk is a big factor, and there's simply no getting around. If I have a proven track record with the same team, everything else being equal, on paper, and I have a team I have literally almost never done work with, at least in the relevant past. I'm trying to ask myself, where do I have, there's no perfect answer, so where do I have the highest level of certainty? It's an imperfect world. I'm going to say, I have a track record, it's relevant, everything else being equal, I'm going to go with the known quantity. That's one consideration, is what I'm getting at. There isn't one, the emphasis on their relevant history with the district, recent history, only came into play by the time we were down to the last 2 selections. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make, is we're using a whole number of considerations here. And only when we get down to those 2, and we have to keep digging a little deeper to say, well, what's the trade-offs? That's kind of what we come down to. And again, between Corollo, well, I've already said all this, so I won't repeat myself.
But you would agree, looking at this project proposal, how much in depth it is compared to the other one? It just has so much incredible.
All 3 to 4 of them had their own relevant strengths, yeah. Yeah.
We approved a contract last month with B&C, didn't we? For
Correct.
$750,000.
That was for engineering.
It was an engineering work.
Combination condition assessment.
And they were the high bidder on that one too. The second bidder, according to Randall, was very close, only $1,000 difference. Is what he said. I actually never saw the bill bids.
Right.
But if I were a layperson looking at this, I'd say that agency's steering their business to certain contractors.
A layperson could say that, right?
Well, that's who we represent as lay people.
But lay people aren't making, I don't need to say it.
Well, in theory, you would explain to them why you chose something else.
I can't do that.
No,
Maybe you
I know you
can.
can, I know you can. I'm going to ask a hypothetical question. If we pick somebody like Corollo and they said, whoa, the permits are costing us $100,000, who would pay the additional $70,000?
They would come back and request to negotiate a change order with the district.
So we would end up paying that.
It would be negotiated.
All right. So lowballing some of these things lowers your contract estimate, but you can recover it with the change order later on.
Certainly. And that's, I mean, just to show you what.
That's what I'm looking at too, is change
If you look at Corollo and Brown Caldwell, by the time you get to construction management, which is out there past design and so forth, Okay, it's reversed. Corolla has nearly $100,000 more for construction management than Brown Caldwell does. Why? Because I would guess their team made some slightly different assumptions about how this project unfolds and where they're going to put their resources. Is Corolla right and Brown Caldwell wrong, or vice versa? No. But if you look at the numbers in front of you, the limitations of our ability to say which of these is the best is very limited. West Yost, by the time it's similar, by the time you get to West Yost, they've got nearly 130,000 more for construction management than Brown Caldwell. Now, Brown Caldwell has more for upfront design. That was a decision that their team made in developing this proposal. My point is not that any one of those numbers is right or wrong, it's that this is the nature of the uncertainty of the process at this point. They've given you their best shot at how they think the job is going to unfold. We've said, based on our knowledge of the job, we think this team actually got it closest. They reflected the best understanding, the best allocation of resources. It's going to be an imperfect choice. And we're going to manage it for the next year and make it as cost efficient as we can. We'll look for cost savings. That's inherent in the process, and I don't have any doubt that Brown Caldwell will do that for us. But right now, no one in this room can tell you with any degree of certainty whether the final product is going to be 100,000 more, 100,000 less.
Oh, there'll be
This is
change
what
orders.
I
bet you
would,
lunch.
yeah, we do not go through a job of this length and complexity without some variability.
There'll be change orders. Unless we swear on a Bible.
Well, it would take us out to the public, and I don't think we have a
Too
need for
bad.
that. So,
You're looking for a motion?
well, I thought Peter was gonna come up with some grand
No,
market.
it's expensive, it's hard to deal with it. I think we're gonna save money with the Brown Caldwell, but everything that everyone said reflects the uncertainty of this kind of work. I'm an engineer, and I try to make decisions on the basis of engineering. I'm also a physician, I make decisions on the basis of physicians. I think that doing projects faster from an engineering standpoint and from a medical standpoint is good. Other people can say, well, no, I'd rather have a neurosurgery go twice as long. It's going to be a difference of opinion on how you approach it. But if our engineers looking at this say, this looks like the best one to them, and we think we can save that money going downstream in terms of the length of the project, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I'm willing to go with them, and we'll go on their professional judgment.
And I'll ask again, if you answered, I apologize. It is a practice in the industry that if an RFP says not to exceed X, that the responsive bidder can exceed that because of the level of whatever substantiation that they're providing. I mean, I can imagine a process that says, you're not responsive. We said not to exceed X and you exceeded X.
That would be the difference between a public contract that would actually go out and be bid, and it would be awarded on responsiveness and responsibility and the lowest bid. But that's under the public contract code. This is under a whole different process, and it's a request for proposals, and you look at price is only one of the factors, and there is some language that price can be considered if fee information solicited, but it may not be the sole determining factor because these are professional service contracts. Contract management, architectural services, engineering services. You're looking at, it's based on experience, and price is one of the factors. But it is more discretionary. It is not like a public works contract where we would have to reject the lowest bidder for some reason, and that would be responsiveness or responsibility to go to someone else. But you're not bound by that.
And I mean, would I be correct in sort of summarizing the response of the staff, as in they recognized costs that, we didn't recognize when we were putting together our engineering estimates, and we sort of say, oh, you're right, and that is going to cost that. And so it's all justified and reasonable in your minds.
It's, yes, as their best estimate, there is, I guess, I say caveat, but that's probably the best.
Yeah. And the only findings that, the board, through the recommendations of staff, would be that the contract must be awarded on the basis of demonstrated competence and the professional qualifications necessary for the satisfactory performance of the services required at a fair and reasonable price. And price is only one of the factors. So I think what staff has done with this team that reviewed it is they have said that this contractor has the demonstrated competence and the professional qualifications for this type of project. And I think a very strong finding is in the staff report. It was a committee that reviewed it. It wasn't just one staff person, but it was a collective group of people reviewing it and coming to this recommendation. So,
All right, any further discussion?
No, I'd like to call a question, but I don't know if everybody's exhausted themselves yet on this.
Hearing nothing more, I'll ask for a motion.
Well, I'll make the motion that we accept the proposal from Brown and Colville and authorize the general manager to execute a professional services agreement for an amount not to exceed $874,003. And this time we're going to hold it to the $3.
and no cent.
I'll second that.
Sullivan Wasco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you. Item number 11, adoption of an updated sewer system management plan, SSMP.
This.
Greg.
Okay, the item you've got in front of you is, as it's described, it's for the board's consideration of adopting the updated sewer system management plan. The SSMP is the acronym. The SSMP is a regulatory document that the district maintains and updates periodically. All is required under our the requirements of the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And we had a specific request or requirement to update the district's SSMP included in the cease and desist order from early last year. Plus, beyond that, there's been a number of changes to the regulatory drivers that influence the SSMP. So there's a combination of reasons why it was basically ready for an update. So most of the work that was done for updating the SSMP was done roughly in parallel with the second half of the infrastructure asset management plan work. And the reason partly for that was that we're tapping, the assistance of Doug Humphreys and Vivian Housen and others under that contract to help assist in the updated SSMP. It is a very substantial document, as you probably realized, and from the hard copy you were provided. It is a regulatory document, so the majority, nearly all of the content is really what's material that we're required to cover and address in one form or another to meet the requirements, to meet the regulatory requirements. We gave a draft of the updated SSMP to the Regional Water Quality Control Board near the end of the year in order to meet the deadline that was specified in the cease and desist order. And we did that clearly communicating to the regional board that that was to be considered a draft because we had not had the opportunity to bring that to the board yet. And the earliest we were in a position to bring the SSMP up for consideration is basically again this month. Your staff report has the outline of the contents. You can see at the bottom of that first page, the various sections of or elements of the SSMP. So basically, following the board's consideration and when and if you take the motion, we would simply resubmit a final version of the SSMP to the regional board. And this would be the document that we would be holding ourselves to in terms of a lot of the activities that it covers. I do want to note that it's a pretty extensive document. I was, if I'd been thinking further ahead, we had the draft ready for the regional board. We didn't think of this in terms of, well, I'll just say myself, in terms of trying to provide this sooner because it was just considered part of the board package. But, I have understood that there are concerns with the volume of the document and the fact that you're being asked to approve it. So, if after the discussion this evening, you would like more time to look at the document or what have you, I've basically confirmed that we could submit this to the board in February, et cetera. So I just want to throw that out because I'm recognizing again it's a pretty extensive document that has not been in front of you before. But that's basically it. Eventually, when you do consider it, and if it's adopted by the board, that would be our action. We would take it. We would simply resubmit it to the Regional Water Quality Control Board for their records. And we have pretty much all the people that were, with a few exceptions, that were key, the key technical people behind the document. So I'm sure we can answer any questions. And that's it.
I got a lot to say about this.
Okay.
I'll sum it up.
Well, can I ask first, just, are there board members who would prefer to table this to a future board meeting for more opportunity to review for SSMG?
Yeah, I mean, I would like a little presentation, maybe a 10-minute presentation to sum it up. Because I feel like I'm just lost in the sea of policy. Some of it looks ancient, it looks hand-typed.
That's the JPA, I think.
Yeah, it's got a lot of appendix documents that are just included as, well, the reference documents that make up the overall. Yeah, so you do have some historic documents inserted there.
And this is, it says updated, but this is actually the first one, is that right? You and I talked about this, Brad.
No, it's a substantial update or revision.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm not sure what the old one looks like, so I'm not, so usually what I'm used to on drafts is that you look at how the old one and the changes,
It just doesn't really lend itself to that. The reason why is simply the magnitude of the document and the overhaul. If you were to sort of try to go through page by page, the changes are wholesale. So I guess maybe is a better way to put it. You're not so concerned with how this looks compared to the old one. You're concerned with, does this meet the current requirements and needs? Because by its very nature, the old one is now out of date relative to the regulations.
So, yeah, I just take my time
I'm not going to put it off till the next full meeting, if everybody else is. And are we asking for a staff to walk us through it or something for 10 minutes or so?
I think that would be a great idea. We've talked individually about all the various elements of it, but it'd be nice to have a cohesive review. This is how the state plans to have you keep up to date.
Okay. Do we need a motion usually, or can we just?
We could just continue.
Yeah, continue it till next.
Just continue it.
Okay, thank you. Item number 12, consideration of approving an engineering technician job description / classification. This was continued from last time.
Wait, can I just have some clarification on that last sentence? So when it comes back the next time, you would like a staff presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be part, continued with direction to staff to maybe do a PowerPoint or something to, I just want to get the direction clear.
And I have to tout this document, it's an awesome document.
It's absolutely the same thing.
We've got one about this big. This place needs one this big. And it's an awesome document, thank you for it.
Okay, so we will take that.
And we should hold
direction.
on to our copies so you don't have to reproduce them.
Yeah, excellent.
Or
I do have the old version.
Did you bring it with you? I don't know.
Okay, so back to item number 12.
So yeah, this was continued from last board meeting. And what this is, the staff board job in front of you, the action is being proposed is basically, it's a new job classification. And as I think you're all aware, the district has a set group of specific formal job classifications. And all employees have to be assigned a job classification. This one is creating the classification of what's called an engineering technician. And what occurred over the last roughly 8-9 months is we had a person retire who was serving generally under the engineering department. And when that headcount, so to speak, came open, we took the time and the opportunity to pause and say, okay, well, if we look forward, what the district's needs are over the next 5+ years, what is it that overall group, what kind of work is it going to be doing, what are the unmet needs, et cetera. And what we concluded was that there really was not a need, even though I think our org chart at the time showed it, for 2 assistant engineers. And what was missing actually was essentially more of a lower level technician type position that would assist with a wide range of activities that engineering has to cover. This is everything from permit processing to inspection support under certain circumstances to capital projects, both design and in limited cases, and more typically the project management. There is more and more what the district is wrestling with is a very rapidly growing information flow, and a lot of that sort of comes to the junction that it arrives at, where there's the bottleneck in a sense right now, is within the whole engineering group. So this position, this new job classification, is not adding headcount to the district. It's taking existing headcount and essentially just reallocating one vacancy to this new job classification. The types of duties, it's a wide ranging. This is assisting with everything from data input and management for GIS, for the CMMS work, basic CAD software system support, records management, response and support for the various types of permit applications that come in, et cetera. It's a lower level of compensation than the old position to go with the appropriate, or to align, I should say, with the new job classification. We did a salary survey, kind of cross-section of the industry in terms of what these positions look like to arrive at the recommended salary range. This is or would be a non-represented position. And those are really sort of the highlights, I guess. The group has been operating at this point really with just the 2 staff. We've gotten some assistance here and there from some of the, like I mentioned earlier, the part-time resources. But as we, particularly as the district is moving towards trying to have a sustainable capacity to be delivering the level of work that we're looking at, this is just a very, very clear, unmet need right now. So the staff recommendation is to approve creation of a new job classification, and that's what's before you this evening.
Okay, board members, questions?
The salary is listed, but the true cost of the position isn't. So, you know, the PERS, the cost of PERS, vacation, holidays, employee portion of PERS, or do we pay the employee portion of PERS? No one has a salary in there now.
As far as total cost, I don't have an exact number. We probably could apply a rough multiplier just based on what's, typical for the benefits.
What would you say, Monday, a third?
30%.
About 30%. About 30%?
30%?
Yeah. that's
Okay.
probably
Will this employee be paying their own PERS, the 8% PERS?
Well, I'm looking right now to see if the unrepresented,
Second
yes.
tier.
New
Yes.
employees are a second
Yes.
tier, they pay their own portion of PERS to the 8%.
Do we recruit internally for something like that? Do we have, if there are maintenance workers who've gone back to school? or something like that?
Good question.
Our anticipation is that we would post an open recruitment, certainly.
So anybody.
Or internal people would be welcome to apply. The level of formal education that we would be hoping for in this, may be something that it's a very small number of maintenance workers that have.
Right.
But I don't know what everybody's background is, so if they've got it, come on down.
Well, it just says high school plus a couple of college courses,
Right.
and
Those are minimum qualifications.
Yeah.
We'd like to hire a little more skilled.
we'd like to have another engineer, maybe like this.
Hire at first, second, third, fourth, fifth step. Some cities used to say manager couldn't go beyond step 3. I don't know if we have any rules and regs.
The district has a policy that says only under sort of exceptional qualifications would you hire beyond the first step, and the manager's gonna have to make a special approval. If that is done, we would have to justify to some extent what are the credentials that really warrant that.
And we need this position.
Yes.
There's plenty of work.
We free up Catherine to do some other things other than.
Yes, a professional engineer is wasted in managing the nitpicky bits of data that she's been managing.
A lot of mapping.
I hated drawing.
You can get a, can't sing her. He was not a good drafter.
Any other questions or discussion from the board?
Well, we put out, what, $2 million in contracts for engineering and inspections in the past couple of months. At some point, we're gonna have to bite the bullet and deal with how we're gonna pay for the improvements. My thought is going along that picking up maybe $1 million from vacant positions in the agency would help fund these improvements that would be made. We keep filling all the positions or creating new ones, we're not going to have any savings. This agency has more employees per feet of sewer lines, I think, than any in Marin County. When I came on board, it was 28, we went to, I voted to put on a couple of crews, one 5-person pipe bursting crew, a 5-person CCTV crew, and I think we had another position. Well, I've been on board. Yeah, I voted to and then we've got some financial straits here, some financial trouble a year and a half ago, and so I don't know what the positions would work that could save us $1 million in personnel. I'm kind of thinking, I would almost like to see an overall look at the agency, who's doing what jobs need to be performed by who, and who can take on more work, and who's overworked, and before, formalizing on the new position. It's intriguing, and it looks, on the face of it, it looks like a good move. But in the overall scheme of things, I'm concerned about down the road here, when we've got to go to the voters with whatever we're going to go to them with. Trying to show that we're a lean sewer replacement machine. If we've got more employees than any other agency around us, and putting out millions of dollars in contracts for engineering and inspections, and then we're any more employees. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. Yeah, just.
Is this position mandated?
What do you mean by mandated candidates?
Consent decree.
No,
I mean,
is
cease
that
and desist.
we need this person, this engineer person, period. I mean, what are we doing right now? That's probably what I
We're
What
slowly getting further behind, and we have people that are working 12-hour days in a pretty unsustainable trend right now. I mean, there's areas of the district that in my year, here I haven't had as much opportunity to get out and see everything I would like to. The engineering services basket of activity is one that I've probably had more opportunity to, and I guess can speak with a higher degree of confidence on and certainty that the volume of work that needs to be occurring to support capital projects and the information management that we're trying to get into place, this person won't be wanting for work anytime soon. And I think someone had mentioned this earlier, but I guess it bears. Right now we are taking higher value, higher paid employees, and by necessity we're having to utilize really an unnecessarily or undesirably high portion of their time to take care of these things. So it's some really basic, fundamental types of needs just for modern engineering, project delivery, methods. So it's not mandated. I guess to be clear, it's an assessment that we're making.
An engineer technician, is that the same as an engineer?
No,
What
it's
credentials?
a big difference. Kind of would be like if you use the common term, engineer, you're really implying a licensed professional engineer. So a 4-year engineering degree typically, passing the state engineering licensing exam. This is really much more minimal credentials and more track record and skills based. At least that's how I kind of characterize it. And with a correspondingly reduced or lower compensation.
Well, when I looked at the last paragraph about the expertise in GIS and these other things, I mean, some of those areas you can get certified, and some of them you just learn on your own,
Right.
and you can either be wonderful or you can be absolutely
Right.
terrible.
Right.
So that, I guess I'm a little concerned about paying someone up to $7,000 a month. If we're not gonna have a credentialed person,
Mhm.
and to get somebody with so much multiple, what's the word, crossover for,
Mhm.
is that really realistic?
Well, in my experience, well, first of all, to be clear, I think you alluded to this, there are a lot of these skill sets that don't have as formal or as comprehensive a sort of stamp of approval or accomplishment as, an license, what have you. And particularly nowadays, where a lot of the information systems technology and skill sets are kind of dispersed. So again, just take GIS, for example. You can go get a variety of different certifications in GIS, both industry and, university systems. But we're not looking for a GIS expert. We're looking for, again, a technician, someone who knows how to get into a standard system, understands the concepts and basic, data flow, how the tools work. So this is what I would say, I would sort of describe as a lower level kind of jack of all trades type of position. The way I would envision us making sure we're getting the right candidate is not going to be by checking a series of boxes that say, they have this certificate and that certificate. We will obviously look at the minimum requirements having been met, but this will be a selection based much more on their demonstrated track record and their ability to show and explain that they have that basic mix of skills.
Is this like an assistant to Randall?
Not, I would say this is a person who's doing a whole bunch of tasks that both Randall and Catherine really should not be spending their time doing, but that they need to get done. So you could use the term assistant, but they would basically be part of that team. And they would also support, to a lesser degree, or I shouldn't say to a lesser degree, they would also be supporting a lot of your basic permitting review activities and so forth. So people bringing in basic improvement drawings. You guys are familiar with the
Plan system.
the sewer extension packages that come into us periodically, with some good basic training on district specs and so forth. This type of position could probably review that to an 80% level, and then have a Catherine or a Randall go, yep, looks good.
So right now, Randall and Catherine are doing all that?
Yeah.
So you need to free them up for higher profile work.
Yeah.
Randall does the computer design too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a mix, and
Do
actually.
you think, you know somebody that has this kind of position? Have you seen?
Oh, yeah, no, this type of position is
Okay, I just
very
haven't
standard.
seen it before, I'm just trying to figure it out. But
Very standard, very standard.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
In
kinda
the
like
old days, it's not the old days are anymore, but, pre-heavy GIS and so on, you would have said, I want CAD skills and,
AutoCAD.
maybe some surveying or something. So the specific technical mixes of this type of position have morphed over the last 10 years as the industry tools and so on have morphed. But the basic, this basic type of position has really been around, I would say, for quite a long time.
There's a paragraph there, second paragraph on the back page. It talks about all the projects we've got going on in the next 12 months. 4 major projects, Group B sewer, Magnolia sewer trunk line, large study of large diameter condition assessment study. We've signed contracts with engineers and inspectors, Harris and B and C for 2 of them, Harris for another one, to do this stuff that's required. So, I'm wondering, will they be doing the work necessary, and perhaps we don't need to hire a person to do some of this work with these projects?
Yeah, the way I kind of look at that, Frank, is the reason we mentioned that is those major capital projects, like the ones that are listed there, those are the ones where we want the majority of Catherine's and Randall's time to be focused, because we want them to be managing those jobs, having time to interact with Harris, or Brown Caldwell, or whoever, and keeping those projects on track. Because any one of those, just managing them on a day-to-day basis is a fair amount of work. What we're emphasizing here is that that's where the engineering staff's time largely needs to be focused. And the way we get there, at least part of the way we get there, is by having this resource take away from Randall and Catherine a lot of the lower level basic day-to-day work. That day-to-day work is, I don't want to portray it as unimportant, but it's very important. That's why we kind of cover it no matter how we have to right now. you know, if a customer comes in and wants to do a public sewer extension permit, we don't want to tell them, you know, come back in a month, we're busy with the project. And we don't do that, to be clear. But really, the only point I'm trying to make is the reason we emphasize that is that those are the demands that are on basically on the district engineer and the assistant engineer. We want their time focused on those big important projects so that they're successful. Harris, I give you a good example. I mean, yes, we hired Harris and they are doing Group A and Group B. We do not sign a contract and say, come talk to us in 6 months when you're done. Their team is interacting with our staff every day of the business week on everything, information, proposals, requests for information, I should say. These capital jobs have a workflow that's going on week in and week out when they're underway. And what that means is all the regular day-to-day business, permits, keeping records moving, keeping the CMS information flowing, moving all of our old records into digital format. Those are the things that this position would help us keep moving while we've got these big capital projects going.
I mean, if you look at the duties on page 1 of the job description, it's quite a bit, really. Quite a bit going on there. I want him to be a web designer, but
We could get lucky.
well, it does say utilize computer. That's different. No, I hear it. It's kind of like we don't get that kind of information, how much the workload, how it's divvied up, and where our engineers are at and what they're doing, and because their job is exempt too, if I'm right. Yeah. So I support this position because I'm feeling I want our engineers to be able to be freed up enough to do their expertise role. And it sounds like they're all over the place, and they're not so much honed in to the hardcore engineer stuff. Am I right?
They're covering all the bases right now.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that a year or 2 ago, but I'd forgotten.
Can I add something to what you're saying?
Oh, you probably know more.
I don't. This is from personal experience with the district, you know. We finally got an engineer on staff several years ago, and it was Randall. I mean, we've had Eric Stasevich for a while, but Randall came in. And, what I noticed was I was always worried about Randall because he wasn't getting much sleep. And I'd say, hey, you know, you're tired, you're working all the time. And I had no idea he was staying here until 8 o'clock at night. Now, he keeps doing it, keeps on going. I come back from CMSA 2 months ago, and who's behind me in his truck? Randall, on his way home at 9:30 at night. And I know that he's delivering on time documents to his boss, who needs him, working on high-profile projects and other things other than just engineering plan set capital improvement projects. So this may make it so Randall can get a little sleep, you know, and maybe even perform at even higher levels, you know, which is hard to believe anyone could, but that's why I support it.
Great, all right. Taking it out to the public formally, and bringing it back to the board. Do I have a motion?
Well, I'd like to make a motion, make a motion to approve the engineering technician job description classification, revise the staffing plan to reflect delete 1 FTE, add 1 full-time employee, assistant engineer and add 1 full-time employee in engineering technician, and authorize general manager to recruit for the position.
Second.
Gloucester and Sullivan, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye. Right?
No.
Okay. So then the motion passes. We are almost at 10 o'clock, and I want to consider prioritizing if other people were interested in that. As I look down the agenda, I'm wondering whether item 16, standing committees and second regular meeting could be tabled until next month. We will actually probably be having a second special meeting next month. Thank you. Is there a consensus on that? Yes?
That's fine.
Okay. And then Greg, what about the mutual aid agreement? Is that something that could be tabled until next month?
It can be, yes.
It's probably pretty quick, isn't it?
It's
We talked
actually,
about
yeah.
All in favor?
There's no
What's
vote.
quick for this one?
I'm just looking for direction.
You're
I
ready?
see.
Okay.
Just looking for direction.
Okay.
Very simple.
I'm pro.
Okay, all right, well then let's do it. Item number 13,
Okay. Thank
you
you.
are looking for direction
Right,
as to
so
what?
this has been a common topic almost every one of my monthly lunches, meetings, I should say, meetings and lunches with the JPA managers. And it's something we've talked about with some of the other, like, public works folks. The district currently does not have any formal, they're called different things. Some communities call them emergency assistance agreements, others call them mutual aid agreements. They're very, whatever you call them, the concept is very straightforward. The two government agencies work out a simple upfront agreement that spells out when you need help on a short-term basis for emergencies, you can go get it from your neighboring district or organization, and you have some basic contractual rules to guide you. So you're not worrying about some very important types of, those types of important financial issues in the middle of an emergency response. Very common, very widely used, and the JPA managers have all, in concept, in my discussions with them, supported the idea of us pursuing this. CMSA, as an example, has an existing long-running agreement sketched out with a number of the local treatment agencies, and that's all this is about. So all we were looking for this evening was direction to go pursue that and bring back the topic to the board, ideally with a draft agreement. The focus is just the JPA members, so it would be an agreement that we would eventually seek between the CMSA itself, Corte Madera, Sand District Number 2, and San Rafael Sand District. And that's really all it is, so just look for direction to go forward and do that.
And San Rafael came in and helped us on one over here in Green Bay.
Exactly, you guys all, I'm
Without
sure
an
you.
agreement, they just came in.
Yeah, and we do that. and
Yeah,
that's-
we've done it for them too.
Okay, very good. I will, nothing, no formal action?
Please, please.
Okay. Yeah, I support the concept.
Very good.
All right, so I do think items 14 and 15 we need to discuss tonight, the response to the civil grand jury and the Barron's culvert, right?
Yeah, they're both time sensitive. The Marin Grand Jury Sanitation Agency Survey. This was a survey that they sent out, as I understand, to all of the sanitary agencies in Marin County. I know I've spoken with other general managers that have recently completed this. It's a largely factual set of very basic information that they've asked all the sanitary agencies to compile for them. And, the examples would be some of your budgetary numbers, how many miles of pipe, and so on. So staff have completed the draft response to that survey. And again, most of this information is really strictly factual, and so we've just provided them our best information. And they had a handful of questions at the end of the survey that I felt were, at least bearing on sort of policy level type discussions, right? It's my understanding they are not looking for big complicated responses here. I think they're just trying to tee these topics up. But I guess I would suggest the board's main focus on this item would be, do you concur with that last part, because the rest of it is really just facts and figures on like our
What
number
last part?
The questions at the end, hold other.
Yeah, thanks, Pam.
Right off the bat,
Which page?
Page
Page
6.
6, there's governance and then there's
of
other.
the answers. Yeah, the answers. Right off the bat, we do we do bill customers by usage already, and you don't say that.
Correct. Okay,
Of all of our,
Commercial,
all
industrial.
our commercial industrial by usage already.
okay, very good. We did.
Yeah, and we,
So you
did
can,
we not?
you
Oh,
can be affirmative, yes, we do. And then you can say there are a lot of complications in doing it in the residential service.
Do you want to just look at one page, or are we starting from the very beginning of this thing?
It's mostly factuals, Pam.
Well, I just wanted to point out one thing on page 3.
Yeah, I think we can go through it all. I had some other comments. too,
Yeah,
but-
well, actually, page 2. I mean, they're really brief, I won't go on and on.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to talk about the signs, but our signs
We'll do-
are
we'll do-
really.
We'll do
Well,
that.
we got them
Right
revised
here.
a year or so
Okay,
ago.
so page 3 then, on line 16, the agency identified all the problem types that require. Is there any way we can throw in a little percentage? I mean, that kind of makes it a little more.
We do, Pam, in the follow-up
Okay,
text, we
never mind.
mentioned 60%.
Okay,
What page?
Three.
Well, should we check yes and no? Should we check two X's? Yes or no, see below or something, or?
Well, the way the question is worded is, have we identified all the pipes and
well, we
all,
haven't.
all the pipes we have?
No, we haven't. We've only done about 60% of
We
this.
say no.
Okay.
What do we say
Maybe
yes?
answers yes to that.
Yeah, well, you know, Cam
Can
Junction
we say no?
has scoped their entire system, so yes, they'll know.
What if we put a little asterisk next to the no, next to the yes by no?
Yeah.
And then asterisk so that where it says the district has been conducting,
Okay,
so just kind of refer to it that.
okay. I can
You
make
said,
that.
no, we haven't, but
Right.
We're almost there.
we're working on it.
It's in there.
Okay, so page 5, but it actually, the question starts on page 4, it's at the bottom, number 2. There was a current annual sewer rate per household in the agency. I got confused when I read the last part of the sentence. It said, included in the totals listed are approximately $300, or about 35%, and 40% of the total rate. That just wasn't clear to me.
Yeah, I didn't word that right.
I didn't
Oh,
understand
yeah.
that.
Ross
And
Valley.
it's reversed, isn't it?
It is, let me fix that.
So if you just fix
47% of
it,
the
I think it's just
638.
an oversight.
I will fix
I
that.
don't think you need to even say it there.
What page is it?
Page, the question starts on page 4 at the bottom, but the answer goes to the next page. And I think I would put the question right next to the answer, just to make it more formalized,
Um,
if you can.
This is item 15, Pam?
Oh, I see, gotcha. So it starts on 4 and it finishes on 5.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
yeah, the last sentence I don't understand.
Okay.
You mean about the $300 and what it's a percent of?
Yeah.
It's 47% of the 638 and 35% of the
Yeah, just put
64.
the numbers.
I'll,
In its own confusing
yeah,
way.
it's not edited very well.
What's this on page 7? There's no, you didn't answer yes or no.
Well, those are the questions
Did a
that are
narrative.
softer that we have to talk about.
Okay, that's all I have.
I had one on one, the first one. The next, the number of residents served by the agency. My thinking is 55,000 includes San Quentin at the time.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the staff would know better. We've been using 55,000 for a while. There was about 5,000 inmates out there, 5 to 50.
Birth rate go way up in Fairfax.
I think that figure reflects San Quentin, in fact, it's a standard
I
figure.
think it
we
does.
use.
I think it does. 'Cause
We
I
could put an
read
asterisk
from
there and
Office.
put a little footnote that says this includes the approximate San
Or
Quentin.
just subtract the San Quentin
Or-
population, which is online.
We
I mean, it's an estimate anyway, right?
Mhm. I think we could also, it's approximate, we could put 50,000, 50.
That might be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know.
So explain what I did at CMSA. They came out with some numbers that were huge. And so I just questioned them one night about the numbers. I said, now, are these really the numbers? I said, when I add them all up, they don't add up. And they went, well, let me see. Well, we're going to check it out and we'll get back to you. And they checked it out. They're about 20,000 off.
And they were including Las Colinas.
And they were including Las Colinas.
Their service area.
Maybe that's next in line for them.
One of the
Drill a hole
problems
through that
we have
mountain.
with really being able to nail that down is the census data is broken down by cities, but county is just county, so you can't say, I want to see Sleepy Hollow region of county and actually get the numbers. So all of these little county regions that we have, they're very difficult to estimate.
Well, we can go to the register our voters and ask how many voters are in Sleepy Hollow. You're in the fire protection district out there, and you can extrapolate, come up with a two.
But how do you go from voters to actual residents?
I'm sorry?
How do you go from voters to actual residents?
You extrapolate. I mean, I think there's some simple numbers out there. If you've got 4,000 registered voters in an area, you've probably got about 6,150 people. So there's numbers out there.
The count at San Quentin is 4260. According to the website.
Oh, 4260.
Design capacity is 3,088. That's actually not as bad as it used to be.
That's
Just-
two
that-
per room and some.
Yeah.
We'll approximate that to 50.
Any more
50,000.
edits from you?
Oh, they said, let's see, does the agency have unfunded pension liability? It says yes. Please provide a copy of last actual valuation of the pension plan. And it says see attached, because we don't have it.
We don't have it yet, right? Not attached.
Is there a number that goes on there
Not.
that's a simple number, or?
Yeah, I'd like to know that number, like 400,000.
Well, the 400,000 is the,
that's
I'm
okay.
sorry, I can't remember off the top of my
Okay.
head. The pension, unfunded pension liability, are you talking about, or the OPEB?
no,
Unfunded pension.
Pension. Yeah, CalPERS publishes it every year. We have it, well, they started publishing it last year, specific to the agency.
What's the approximate number?
Don't ask me to quote that tonight, I don't.
well, we're gonna put a number in there,
Is that?
and you get an email to the board, so we know.
Yeah, let me, we'll just have an action, item to email you guys that information, I know it's a common topic these days, so we'll get that to you.
We did see last year's,
Is
right?
it actuarial?
Provided with the report, yes.
Yeah, so
Aren't
the
the
new one's supposed to come out
actuarials
when?
coming out in February? This came up for me at another meeting, and I thought they had reported that it would be out in February.
No, we have it.
Oh, you have?
We have it. They date their report every October, but it is not available to us in October. It only recently became available to us.
Yeah, January.
They're buying.
Yeah.
I will,
But they still date it October.
Unsurprisingly.
we'll send you guys, just as an information item, that, I'll send out the number when we track it down.
What are we doing? Oh, I thought Brent had some.
No,
Okay.
no, that's it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I do. Question number 8 on page 2, what is the capacity rating? Are you saying not applicable? I guess I just wanted to know why it's not applicable.
The treatment system, we don't have a treatment system.
Oh, thank you. Why would they send this
It's
out?
everybody, it's to all sanitation agencies, so some of them do.
Some
some
trans-
don't.
All right, thank you.
Some just
Yes.
trans-
Could we explain how we maintain the email notification list in number 9? I think that's important. I think we do a really good job of that, and I don't think it hurts to say, that you can opt into it, right? Or it's to the electeds.
You attach
We're in the process of transitioning to have it be a tool like the newsletter so that people can actually go on our
Opt in.
website and opt in.
Great. Great.
We'll expand. a
Yeah,
little
just a little.
information, sure.
Number 10, 2 to 8 hours if the SSO is significant. We define what significant is. I'm just looking at this from a grandeur
Sure.
perspective, since I know some.
Yeah.
The 2 hours per class.
And
Category 1.
on page 4, number 20, I just want to make sure that that's true, that the various studies about consolidation and annexation are available on planning and capital improvements?
Yeah, we'll
That's
keep them on our
okay.
website.
There
Okay, it
are
seemed like
four
a
of them on there now? There are four
Yes.
studies?
Okay. I apologize for not getting the date of my last ethics training to Elena in time for
Uh-huh.
this.
That's why it's
Um,
blank there.
However, I understand that it was, because I did it the year I was elected, so that it's probably expired and I need to do it again online. So I will get that to you guys tomorrow. So we're gonna answer yes to number 2 on page 6, that we would consider.
No, we do already.
Okay,
So the answer is yes, we do already, and then the discussion about the various problems.
great.
I wonder if you want to even say that we've had financial consultants come in and discuss the issue with us extensively, because we have done
Right, we have a rate study.
that. Yeah, we've had a rate study done.
Yeah,
Okay.
and attach that.
Yeah, give them the rate study. so
Throw
they
as
can-
much
Several
information.
rates.
What
But
number
the
are
farm
you on?
cough.
This is question number 2 on
You know,
page 6,
flow-based.
under other.
We spend so much time and money on that, we might as well send them the report. Let them benefit
Yeah.
from it.
Oh, we had a flat one and then we had a flow.
Well, FarmCo did this analysis of the comparison of doing it all flow, partial flow,
Yeah.
you know, just commercial flow. And the new one he's gonna do is the percentage off on apartment building.
So
Oh, that's good. I
we'll,
want to change my ordinance.
we'll mention that we did the past study, and
And then send the study attached.
And then I made a couple of edits to number 3 and 4 that I'll just give you. I just want us to say in number 4 particularly, the Ross Valley Sanitary District does not have a stated position on local control or its advantages. I just like say, you know, it's the lawyer in me, don't say more than you need to say. They're asking us for an opinion. We as a group of people don't have a
We don't have an opinion.
stated. And then
Oh, the pre-sufficient part you don't like.
yeah, and on number 3, I would just change the last sentence to say, we agree with the challenges identified by the recent technical study by Novato Sanitary District.
okay.
What?
I mean, saying C makes it sound like we're asking them to go find it or citing it legally, I think.
Where are you?
Number 3 on page 7, the very last
Oh,
page.
you went up.
Yeah.
Yes, I did, I'm sorry,
Backwards.
I jumped around a little bit, but I'm happy, I'll give you these. I think the wordsmithing for these folks is important because,
They're like that.
They read with an,
well, and we want.
everybody reads with an
President
agenda.
Zella, could you repeat what you said about question 3, please?
Sure, on the last sentence, I would replace the word "see" with, we agree with the challenges identified by the recent technical study. I mean, is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, instead of just referring them to it like, because we don't know about whether they even know about the Novato technical
But they
study.
sent this thing to them, so they'll get it.
Yeah, yeah, but this is,
We don't have to send them a copy of it.
yeah. I think this is really great work and it's really important to respond to them
But
respectfully.
you got
because
4 is just the simple sentence.
They have
The
It's the
district
last,
doesn't-
it's the last sentence.
Should we mention, that, you know, Marin Municipal Water District is now calling for a 25% reduction in water usage. That would have, if we were in a flow-based
Based,
system,
yeah.
a loss of 25% of our income would be huge. We will have maybe a line about MMWD is just calling for a 25% reduction in water usage, which could dramatically affect any agency that's using a flow-based.
A pure, yeah.
It's a great example of how, yeah, I can, I'll add a sentence to that
Yeah,
effect.
it shows why you need a hybrid system.
That's the beauty of the CMSA system. You can go from one to the other whenever they need to.
They do both, right?
All right, anything else on that?
That's great,
I am
thanks for
Sorry,
doing that.
I'm sorry, Director Eger, it's getting really late. Could you say again what change you wanted,
What's what?
the last one?
It would be a sentence in here that Greg would write, that would reference the Marin Municipal Water District's action just passed last night, that's calling for a 25% reduction in water usage. And say that any agency that's based their revenue on flow, facing a 25% reduction in the revenue, would take a pretty good hit, something like that. I
You
don't know.
need a hybrid model.
You got it.
And which section does that go in?
The challenges with this approach, is the approach of flow-based?
Yeah.
Yeah, number 3 on page 7.
Okay, thank you.
Just be a little add-on to it.
All right, do we need any vote on that, or is that sufficient
Direction.
direction? So we're not officially approving it because we made all those edits.
Okay,
Is
so
that-
I will incorporate all those edits, and they had granted us an extension to the 27th,
5 days.
but these are all fairly straightforward.
For the notes,
I will.
let's have a motion. I think the motion's, I would so move to authorize the manager to finalize the response to the grand jury with the comments, they include this evening, comments or changes this evening.
Second. Okay.
It's erased. Egger, Wasco, motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
15 seems to me to be pretty slam dunkish, but could there be
Okay,
We're already
item-
obligated to, we already committed.
Item number 15.
Okay, I will try to keep this quick, I know we're getting late, but this is a very time-sensitive item. Okay, so you have the staff report in front of you. What this item is dealing with is a situation that has arisen since the completion of the Kentville Force Main project. So when the district undertook that project, because of some of the areas that were obviously tearing the heck out of it, we put the new pipes in. One of the specific areas where there's a series of Marin County Flood Control District maintained culverts. As you look at the map on that you have, these are the culverts. You guys are all familiar, I'm sure, with that general stretch there. These are the culverts that allow the tidal water to flow in and out of the park, the kind of that park area just past Bon Air.
the flood control.
Yeah. Now, most of those culverts basically let water go both directions, in and out, as the tide is going through its normal cycle. And the culvert in question, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we replaced 2 sets of culverts in this project in a cooperative cost share arrangement with Marin County Flood Control at the time, because their old culverts were, the original culverts are in very bad shape. They dated back to when that whole area was first burned in by the Corps, and that current situation on Port Madera Creek was created back in, I guess, the 60s.
50s.
So we're going quite a ways back. Okay, so the one culvert, the Barron Slough culvert, after all the work was done, what's different about the Barron Slough culvert is it has what's called a flap gate on the downstream end of the culvert. And that flap gate is there to not allow water to go back through the culvert, from the creek side backwards. And what became apparent over time after the work was all completed and everything was done was that because of the flap gate, the end of the culvert, which sort of sticks out of the bank, if you can imagine, it gets buoyant. When the gates close, there's air inside there because it closed and the tide came up, and now the culvert wants to kind of bend because it's full of air. It was an unexpected problem, and we've been working with flood control over the last, roughly 6 months or so, trying to come up with a solution. And a tentative fix was tried by flood control. They had some of their people go out and literally just basically put these soil anchor assemblies in to try and hold this thing down.
In the mud.
In the mud. It hasn't really been an effective solution. Right. So we went out, it's going on probably 6 or 8 weeks ago now, but Randall, myself, Tracy Clay, the head of Marin County Flood Control, her staff, we walked the site, we kind of talked about the whole history and the problems with the current situation, and we arrived at a fairly simple concept for the fix for this thing. And in essence, if you're familiar with the setup out there, really all we're talking about doing is coming in and excavating a little bit and taking out the last piece of pipe that's in the ground there, this HDP pipe, and replacing it with a new pipe that is more essentially very, very firmly anchored, so it's not going to be floating. It's a fairly simple fix. The complexities in this job really come up in the permitting because of the sensitivity of the area. It's on the creek, and it has a combination of very restrictive permitting conditions. Number one has to do with, well, back up a second. It also has, as you can imagine, an extensive amount of overlapping state and federal agencies that you have to get those permits from. And long story short, we think we have a window right now with the permitting agencies to allow us to extend and continue to work under the current permits and get some, you know, we're one of the few benefits of this incredibly dry winter we're having is we haven't had any big rainstorms. And so that helps because the construction conditions are, you know, somewhat favorable. What we'd like to do, what this is really about, is to authorize staff with a dollar cap that's listed in the report to work with the flood control staff, do the minimal amount of engineering design that's needed to actually back up the fix and make sure it's going to work, and then have a contractor go install this stick of pipe. The time sensitivity with this is that we're in conversations with the permitting agencies right now to get, we hope, some leeway to go out and do this work when officially the window to do this work basically closes, is it February 1st?
February 1st.
February 1st, under normal conditions, the agencies would not let you go out and do the work. Now, we think that there's a chance that we're going to be able to reach an arrangement with them. Again, somewhat because of the unique circumstances that we have. Yeah, combination of clapper rail and fish.
It's fish, toxins, and birds.
Now, I don't want to, gloss over, there have been discussions with county staff about the ultimate responsibility for this work. Because we did the culvert work.
You read my mind.
Yeah, and really what we're trying to do here is get the problem fixed before it becomes a bigger problem. That's really the bottom line. If we have a significant, storm event, and there's any hint of a problem that anybody associates, right or wrong, with this, what we have out there, the situation will immediately get much more complicated and much more expensive for everybody involved in this fight. So we are very clearly trying to just move towards a fairly expedient fix to this thing and put it behind us. And do it in conjunction with flood control. They are more than willing to work with us right now. They're attending the permitting meetings. But what they don't have is they right now they've gotten hit with a lot of the grant funds. The grant funded projects have suddenly come to life for them. And they're basically what they're saying is we'd love to help you, but we can't.
Motivated.
Yeah, right. So in the interest of basically, kind of spirit of cooperation and also, again, avoiding this, having it get more complicated than it needs to, we have, in this essence, offered the approach that says, look, we'll go take care of this and we'll come back to you later and sort of figure out if we need to, split the cost or whatever. But for the time being, the direction or the preference was to just go get this done. So that's really what we're asking your direction on this evening.
Are you anchoring these things down to bedrock underneath the main mud? That's a long ways down.
It's just something much more substantial than they're now back.
Something heavy?
Probably kind of with a heavier pipe and a whole series of anchors to make sure the darn thing's not going anywhere.
Yeah, close that flapper again and it'll float.
Why, was it a flapper before me?
Yes, but the old pipe was so rotted out.
Yeah, it was gone, I think. It used to run by there.
Yeah.
It didn't really function before.
I mean, it flooded when the tide came in.
Yeah, so we've kind of given them a better system than they had.
Would our staff be doing this, the design committee?
No, Randall would be, and myself would be working with whoever we pick, but we need, and actually flood control they would prefer to have sort of.
We're going to hire an engineer to design?
Yeah, Our thinking right now, and this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but if this were to be approved, we would probably try and just go ahead and work with Harris, because they're already sitting in our office right now, and we're working with them on the Group B stuff. It's a fairly straightforward, it just needs a stamped set of drawings to allow the contractor to do the work. It's a pretty small job.
Another question, this has nothing to do with part of our mitigation, that we have to do some restoration down there along the creek with Friends of Corner River Creek.
Yeah, we-
Totally
Nothing-
separate.
totally-
Yeah.
We can't take any credit for this job for
Unfortunately, no.
part of that.
Well, no, but we can take a picture and put it in the paper, you know.
Yeah.
This is preventative.
Fix
This-
I'll bet you they'll let us put it in the Corner Madera Friends of Corner Creek.
So you're saying we might get money from somebody else for it later? Or is that?
It's hopeful thinking, right?
How much money's in that flood project
Seven.
they got from this?
A lot, I don't know. Yeah.
It was half, wasn't half the 1.5 million, or 1.6 million that went into the?
I don't really know, to be honest.
Right, anyhow, let's vote.
Okay, are folks ready for a motion on this?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to authorize general manager to secure design, permitting, and construction services for various slough culvert, coordinated with county flood control, in an amount not to exceed $45,000.
Second.
Glasgow Sullivan, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. Skip to item number 17, verbal report by board members and request for future agenda items. Okay.
I went to the North Bay Watershed Association on January 3rd. They had a fabulous sea level rise study presentation by a couple of scientists. Very great work, and a lot of it was out of the Corn Madera baylands. So they're doing research and studies there about all the sea level rise. Anyway, and we also had a presentation on the Marin Sonoma County Saving Water Partnership, which was very interesting as well. They're into this 20 gallons save.
20-gallon challenge.
20-gallon challenge, right? By, was it a year? Each person will use 20 gallons per day.
Per day.
Per person. So that's a big thing happening. All right, things that went on the agenda are the two policies I talked about. One was for the legal expenses when they exceed our contracted amount of $15,000. The other policy, what was it?
Press release?
Yeah. And I also want to put on the agenda, what are we doing for education outreach? Because we're not into the circle with CMSA and those other agencies. We really have to do something, even at, I know they're covering some of the schools, which is good, but if we're gonna start, aren't we gonna have outreach anyway for different government agencies coming up with IAMP and all that?
Yeah, we
So-
simply haven't.
We could cover kill two birds with one stone. So, that's another agenda item. And last, I want to go on a tour of the agency. I did this when I first was elected. I want to know if anybody wants to go along with me when I go. And I don't know who's taking me. But Greg said somebody would.
I'd be happy to. We'll get started.
So,
Well, actually, on
I
that
think it'd be
note,
really good to overview the whole system.
Yeah, and I know you guys have all probably seen parts and pieces, but just to kind of second that or whatever. I just recently been still trying to get out, and there's just no substitute. If you spend an hour or two with any of our crews on any activity, I almost guarantee you will come away with a bunch of good information and a better understanding of what we're doing. So whether it's the rotters or the cleaners or the pump stations or the point repairs. So anyway, I would just encourage you, and as Pam and I talked about this a few months ago, I would be happy to facilitate or coordinate in any way possible. So just.
Like 2 hours?
Oh, yeah, more than that, just keep it simple, an hour, 2 hours.
Hour, okay.
Plenty, we don't need to take on the 5-hour tour. Yes, we do. Anyway, let me know.
So quickly, Mary, I went to the CASA conference.
Uh-huh.
And Greg and I were there together. I don't know if you want to talk about it or not, but there were a couple of topics that came up. One was in terms of processing. Everybody was talking about the value of what we do and how important our product is and how it can be used for making fuel for cars and on and on and on and on. And that water is going to be the new gold or new oil or whatever. So there was a lot of talk about that. Yeah, no, there was a lot more about it. And there were multiple different projects. One about a fertilizer project making little pellets, and one making oil to drive cars out of the sewage product. And it was all good stuff. And then in terms of water recycling, there's a lot of talk about gray water and rain capture, sort of things Frank's been talking about. There's all kinds of new lower energy methods for cleaning water, which we'll be hearing probably more about here. Los Angeles is producing 350 million gallons a day of clean water from its treatment plants.
What kind? Desal?
Pat and I are doing that.
Combinations of all different things, but they got fish swimming in them, so they're okay.
So are you giving up on getting Greg's former water?
Well, no, actually, not that. There was a lot of talk about what the drought impact will be on water recycling and water purification, and the implication is they're going to really do a lot of expanding that. The speaker was a guy named George Hawkins from D.C. He used to be the regulator with the government that regulated the water and sewer district, and then he was hired by the water and sewer district to be its general manager. And he was hilarious, and I think you missed part of his talk, but he was absolutely hilarious. He left Washington, D.C. the morning that it was 10 degrees or 5 degrees or whatever, and he had 20 broken mains that froze. Washington never gets that cold, so all the water supply froze. And he was getting ready to take a plane to come to L.A. to talk to us.
He ran out of town.
He pointed out that this cleaning the sewer up was the greatest public health benefit ever, way above immunization and washing hands and things like that. Anyhow, it was a good conference.
What about the IAMP?
Yeah, that's not worth the talk.
round table.
Oh, the round table? Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
One of the-
Give me that.
I'll keep it brief. We were asked to specifically to participate in what we call, they have a series of roundtable discussions. One of them is a CASA-sponsored effort to have about 10 wastewater collection agencies collectively participate in about a 6 to 10 month effort to brainstorm and work under a facilitated process to help identify what the wastewater collection industry of basically 10 years from now, what is it looking like? What are people doing? What are the equipment and methods they're using? What are the new, basically, what are all the changes that are hitting our industry? And what does an agency like ours look like 10 years down the road? Vivian's not here anymore. Vivian and a couple other people, one of the key facilitators of it, along with a handful of general managers from other districts around the Bay Area, some of which are held up as really good examples of
Best practices.
Yeah, best practices. So I'll be bringing back some more information about that and consideration of participating in that effort. It's all very informal right now, but
Keep this stuff coming this summer. I mean, all of this, frankly.
One of the best things out of this was that the sharing the information from the multiple agencies around, how many employees they have and what they do and what your general manager does, what your engineers do, and all that stuff. They're going to have a kind of a standard across the system.
How many people went? About
Well, it was packed. It was.
300, I guess 300 or 400, yeah.
You flew down south.
It was 80 when I got off the plane.
Yeah, and were you carrying your golf clubs?
I wasn't. I was in meetings all day long. I was hard
Good,
to get
that's what I want
outside.
to hear.
It was hard.
Quick comments?
Can I get a copy of that?
Frank's
Okay.
One of the public agencies that I sit on, the council has advised the minute taker and the board that after January 1st, the minutes have to reflect every board member's vote. used to say motion by so-and-so, second by so-and-so, the vote was unanimous. It's got to list every board member
It
now.
has to be announced, yeah.
In the minutes, they got to be printed
Yeah.
in the minutes, so you know,
Say that again,
how- every person's vote.
every vote has to be done for every item?
No, but it is announced by,
I'll say unanimous
or it is 3-2 or something like that. yeah.
Or so-and-so
No, it's got a
negative?
list. the
Yeah, I know
names.
what section you're talking about.
So it just needs to say Agers opposed? like that.
Ager, no.
Yeah.
Meg, no. Scylla, yes. Bosco, yes. Sullivan, yes.
Yeah.
So I do
And
include
when I
that.
see,
Yeah, she includes that in the minutes, I believe.
I either put passed unanimously if it passes unanimously, or I list.
can't use unanimously, you got to list it.
Well, that's great.
Well, maybe Jolie
See,
can
that's
check-
crazy.
check the
That-
code.
that-
Well,
No, I actually have the code section, I can email it to you, because it comes under this Brown Act section that says no secret ballots, and now it says that the report has to be verbally reported, the vote has to
Yeah,
be
but
verbally
just times you
reported.
start.
All right.
And then one more thing,
Does that
quickly.
mean that I
I met with the,
Yeah, I know. Folks,
I met with the conservation manager of the municipal water district, and he wants to work with us. You know, we've got some funds, I don't know, it's 200,000 or something, in the conservation sewage reduction fund. And I'm gonna suggest either we have it on the agenda, or perhaps just kind of have Greg meet with them, and perhaps they'll run a program for us, and we can fund it in the Ross Valley. For instance, if they want to do water urinals for schools and for public agents, public buildings, and maybe commercial in the Ross Valley, that if they would run the program for us, we would fund the physical installation. We wouldn't do it, we wouldn't have it, they would do it for us, and we would fund it. So,
Is that a grant?
no, we have money in the budget.
for outreach,
No, this is for conservation / sewage
Right.
reduction.
You're doing gray water or whatever.
Gray
that
water,
was
gray water.
250, I think, got
So-
added to the budget.
Oh, that's right.
You talk about gray water and waterless urinals.
Now I remember.
They're doing ultra-low flush toilets and rainwater catchment. If we throw in a gray water and waterless urinals, all of a sudden, you know, we've got those Ross Valley covered.
Yep. And I will follow up, I know Kristen and I had talked about this in the past just briefly, and really just trying to figure out kind of what's the most beneficial use of the funds. That's really all we're trying to figure
I'll
out.
see if we can get them to run it, and we just.
Even better.
Absolutely, you know, so we don't have to mess with it. Just- They run it, and they send us a bill, how many urinals they've had installed, so.
We're gonna be busy though, right?
All right,
Well,
anything
that's all
else?
part of what they need to do.
Well, it's-
Anything else?
What
Okay.
time tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night?
I'm just kidding.
All right, so we are adjourned, well, I guess we should announce that we intend to have a special meeting on Monday, February 10th, just going into closed session for the purpose of the legal counsel review discussion. And at the district offices, is that correct?
Yes.
At 5 PM, I would call it. And then we will have a regular February meeting on the 26th. No meeting on the 19th, because it's the President's Day holiday. February 26th here at 7 PM, presumably closed session at 6 PM beforehand. Thank you all.
And I have
Good night.
I have that